There we go. Ah. Back again. Imagine that. Thank you, Don. What's up, Donald? What's going on, man? Oh yeah, that's our good boy. He's the only one of our dogs that we've ever taken a picture of, that, and that was the first and last picture of Doobie that was ever taken. Those people that put their animals in clothing and shit, like little sweat jackets and shit, and then take pictures, it just fucking annoy me. So I'm the extreme opposite. No pictures. Fuck that. If you want to see my puppies, come climb my fence. Hope you belong there. Yeah, I'm here. You can't hear me? Phoebe, turn up your speakers. Oh, okay. Trump signed an executive order that anyone meddling in the election. No, I didn't hear it. Wow, that's crazy. Any person, company, country. Wow. Or entity of any sort. He's definitely hitting them where it hurts. You know what I mean? He's taken all their favorite little thorns away from them. Yeah, Google's in China. Soros sold the voting booths. Yeah, what the fuck, man? It's a miracle we ever got Trump, truthfully. They shadow ban Republicans. Oh, no, not just Republicans. Look, they don't just shadow ban Republicans. They went after Jimmy fucking Dore. They don't come any more liberal than that dude. He's a Bernie boy, for fuck's sake. And I guess they went after him. Because he doesn't talk like he's got no brains in his fucking head. Oh, I know where Trump can go with this. Look, Trump is being much nicer than I would have been, Phoebe. The second we got control of the Patriot Act and took over the government that had control of that, the fucking criminals would understand why it's a bad idea to give the government that sort of power. Because I would demonstrate it to them objectively. This was absolutely the best case we could hope for. He 100% has halted the destruction of America, at least for a minute. So yeah, I'd say that's a win. I'm going to put that in the W column. The fudge is in Ashtabula, Ohio. Awesome. That means it'll probably be here tomorrow. That's fantastic. It'll be here in tomorrow's mail. That's fucking... Well, it'll be at my... Yeah, never mind. Yeah, it'll be here in tomorrow's mail. How long you been on? Think I got notification late. No, I only been on a couple minutes. I went on a little early, Devra. It's still about 1:45. My Sick Pat channel was suspended for 90 days for a Bob Ross video that contained ads about... I don't fucking know, dude. They gave me some lame-ass excuse and suspended me for 90 days. That's just a much better answer. Pat got a show idea. Really? All right. I got a pretty good one lined up for tonight. I got kind of a special one. So what's your show idea? Bitching. Yeah, a little bit. You know, I'm annoyed. They fucking annoyed me. I need to do call-ins. Oh, dear God. I'd have to get one of those Walmart phones that's like $45 unlimited, because I'd never be able to fucking keep minutes on my call. On my phone, I mean. I buy minutes for mine, like 4 good phone calls and they're gone. That's pretty much what happens. I'd have to get one of them fucking Walmart unlimited things. God, that means I'd have to get one of those phones. Oh, God. Ah. All right. That was linked to the X-22 report. All right. Well, what do you guys think, man? She's thrown an idea out there. Would you guys like to call in on a telephone once a week? Have call-in night? Holy sheep dip. Ugh. I hope I don't fall asleep tonight. That's all right, Gus. We don't mind napping. Can we prank call? Hey, man, this is America. And in America, sometimes you send prank calls to people just because you can. That's how it works, bud. Prank calls are totally in bounds. Go up, Pat. All right, listen to this elderly man's interview with Dr. Edward Spencer. Various channels. Start with Stop the Crime channel. All right. Is homemade fudge rolled in almond bark. I make chocolates, butter, sugar, dark chocolate, semi-sweet chocolate, marshmallow cream, and vanilla rolled in almond bark. Yeah, that sounds about right, man. Then have the other person take the call. Oh my goodness. We used to use pagers. My wife would put the FBI's number in mine. Hell no. That's messed up. Barry, you need to open a shop. I'm telling you, man. He was in the business. He's a mover and a shaker in the world, man. Smiles Cafe? Are you fucking kidding me? You got the perfect fucking source for recipes right here on this chat, man. I've heard some of the best food talked about in here, man. Tears incorporated with a smile. Good night, MJ. Take care, Australia. Don't let the liberals get you. Jesus, you're fucking surrounded down there, buddy. Yeah, well. Mind your top knot. I have a $50 bet on the hurricane. Right on, man. I spit in the face of death. I bet it hits Thursday. Kevin says Friday. Oh, geez, you. Oh, yeah, that's a good one. For $50, huh? I don't know. Largest bet you made. Ah, you're pushing the envelope. I'm embarrassed how these did not turn out my best. Oh my God, dude, I'm sure they're absolutely fucking spectacular. I can prejudge these at 7 stars. I haven't even smelled one yet, and I'll give it 7 stars. Just watching you eat it, I give it 7 stars. Million to 1. I may have to pull it out of your envelope. Oh, no. Ah, well. Hey, I'll donate to the cause. I'd back a Phoebe bet. If it hits Friday, he wins. Well, hey, let's hope we get this over with then. Should have got the stamps while I was out. What up, Raul? How you doing, man? Good to see you back. Bringing the Latino heat because Choco Loco doesn't come here anymore. Dang her. Where's she at? Where's our Yaritza? Hi, Miriam. That's your school money. Right on. Hey, dude, I'll wager another, you know. It's about 16 miles an hour. Well, 60 in 10 hours, 320 in 20 hours. Ooh, boy, Phoebe, that's a close bet. If it doesn't slow down at all, then about 10 p.m. on Thursday it'll hit. We got to get the bookies on this. Northwest at 16 miles an hour. Right on. Holy sheep shit. Q-boards got censored like Alex. Just out. No shit. The Q-boards have been censored? Are you kidding me? On what? Look, I'm not a Q-tard, but fucking why? How could anything they are doing be construed as a violation of the rules? I don't understand that at all. There's got to be some serious mental gymnastics involved in that thought process. Oh yeah, the insurance companies are fucking they're in butthole pucker mode right now. Truth, it's the new hate speech. You know, dude, well, that's fine. They can say that all they want, but it's just not the way the universe works. Truth doesn't give a fuck about their feelings. What the ass? The truth serves no master. That is so true. Went right back in there, I did. The truth is the master. What's up, Dallas? $73. Right on, man. Does not cover water damage due to flooding. Check the policy. You should have read the fine print. What's up, Dallas? Jesus, Froggy's already shooting at him. Contents. There you go. You got a good policy. Now, if it's a washer machine, it's on the landlord. I hear you. Roof blows off, I'm covered. There you go. Well, shit, you can't beat that. That's a policy you got. That's the one you need. The one that puts the roof back on. I think it's pretty reasonable to want your roof to stay right where it's at, but, you know, that's just me. Uncovered but covered. That's right.
The Dan Bongino Show. Get ready to hear the truth about America with your host, Dan Bongino.
All right, welcome to the Dan Bongino Show. Producer Joe, how are you today?
I'm doing well, Dan. It's a pleasure to be here.
Another stacked news day, a lot to talk about. The Dems trying to run interference again on the media leak story. I got to get into that. Another terrific piece by Lee Smith. And I want to get into some other news. More outrageous liberal insanity. Ladies and gentlemen, they are losing their minds, and it's reminding me of where they were after George H.W. Bush had won the presidency after 2 terms of Ronald Reagan, where they completely lost their minds, broke with reality, and as a result, the Democrat leadership committee came in and had to rebuild the Democrat Party back on the mound of sanity again and started nominating people like a Bill Clinton type who, despite his moral failings, was a little more of a centrist type Democrat. They are really in a lot of trouble right now. So we'll get to some of that too. A lot to talk about today. Today's show brought to you by our buddies at My Patriot Supply. Ladies and gentlemen, as you well know, it is hurricane season, and the time for emergency preparedness is now. It's not after disaster strikes. It is important. In recent weeks, we've seen a couple of hurricanes, flooding, and numerous wildfires. Disasters for many, unfortunately. Widespread disaster can strike too. Earthquakes, solar flares, cyber attacks can knock out the electric power in your house for weeks. It says for millions for weeks. I thought it says for millions of weeks. That would be really bad, but it can knock out power for weeks. That's a serious problem, maybe months. When there's no power, refrigeration fails, stores.
All right. We got to shut this part off. She's downstairs. Oh, no. 2,000 euros a year for 45 years to insure my business, house, and all, and never made a claim. Wow, that's a bloody fortune. You're damn right it is. Jesus Christ, Gus. That's 90,000 euros. That's like $115,000. Jesus fucking. Wow. Wish I could click my heels 3 times. Yeah, right?
8926 or prepare deal. Okay. Just a couple of quick stories before I get into the just astonishing attempts at these. You almost, Joe, have to admire the Democrats. The gall on these guys. They just. And when I say admire, I don't mean that in a qualitatively good way. I mean like you stand in awe of the just moral depravity, the moral and ethical vacuum they live in. They are so completely busted on this entire Spygate scandal. Plan A, the unmaskings and the probability of queries into the NSA database. Plan B, the setup operation. Plan C, the sweep-up operation. And now I'm going to add Plan D to this for those of you who caught last week's show. Plan D, which is the media conspiracy to cover this thing, cover their tracks, and constantly backtrack on old stories to make believe old stuff didn't happen. Wait, what? Hang tight. Plan D will make sense. But it's just amazing, the cojones on these people. They are so... Just know this, and I want you to take a little solace in this, because when I'm done explaining, it'll make sense how awful these people are. Just know this, that if you believe in a higher power, which I do, so I'm not a preacher, it's not a preacher show, I'm not your pastor, your rabbi, your imam, or anything else. Right. I'm just suggesting that. I know a lot of this is depressing at the end of the day. Matter of fact, even my wife said to me last night watching Papadopoulos on Hannity, she's like, is anything going to happen? I said, I know this. Things are happening. They may not be happening that fast. Is anything severe going to happen to the perpetrators of this? I don't know. But I know this. I will one day be answering to a higher power. And I know this, to all you liberals, police staters, media conspirators in this, and all of you really awful, disgusting, horrible people who perpetrated one of the greatest violations and scandals in U.S. history. I know this. I'm not you. I am not you. I will never be you. You're filth. Mm-hmm. I know you're filth. What you did was disgusting. What you did was horrible. And I know you have to wake up every morning looking in the mirror knowing you're you. You know, I have this guy who goes after me all the time on Twitter, and I'm not just saying this to be a jerk, but if there was a definition of loser in the dictionary, this guy's it. I mean, I'm talking about real, like crime, abusing women. Like, he's a really awful guy. I only know him, and I'm not going to say how because I don't want to give him but It's just, I always think to myself, like, you have to wake up every morning taking solace in the fact that you're not him. Like, he has to be him every day. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's his punishment is being him. This is not that I'm avoiding legal punishment, not that wax philosophic, but I'm just really pissed about what's going on. But I want you to know, just smile a little bit. You are not these idiots. These people are epic losers. Corrupt, morally absent people. They have no values at all. And what they're doing now to cover up Plan D, the media cover up, is just incredible. All right, before I get to that, one quick note on economic news, something to smile about too. I have a story in the Washington Examiner today, which is really good, which kind of doubles down on something I brought up yesterday about Tax Cuts 2.0. The Republican Party has now put out a platform for Tax Cuts 2.0, doubling down on the Trump tax cut plan that had already passed. Now, this is important because the entire premise of Democrat and liberal and media opposition to the tax cuts plan originally, Joe, was that these tax cuts were not permanent on the income side, but they were permanent on the corporate side. As I said yesterday, the Republicans now have them in a corner because they are likely to put a bill out there that is going to make the income taxes permanent on the personal side. And the Democrats that ranted and raved, oh my gosh, they're not permanent for us, but they are for businesses, are now going to be exposed for the complete, utter frauds they are. They stand for nothing. They're frauds. Now, what's even better about this is the Examiner piece lays it out with specific accusations the Democrats made. One of them, Joe, well, the tax cuts plan, the initial one. Joe, it's not a tax. It's not a tax cut. It's actually a tax hike.
Oh.
Now, Joe, if you're saying, is your question me? How's that, Dan? How is it a tax hike if it's a tax cut?
That's what I was thinking, Dan.
The reason they said that is because they obstructed making the tax cuts permanent. So in 10 years, in that 10-year window, when the tax cuts expired because the Democrats wanted them to expire, they were alleging that your taxes would go up again. Ladies and gentlemen, if this is not the most warped, but again, this shows you the moral vacuum these idiots live in. This was a serious argument these morons made. We are going to block, this is the Democrats, we are going to block making the tax cuts permanent. As we blocked them, the Republicans responded by making them temporary, figuring something's better than nothing, right, Joe?
Yeah.
The Democrats then responded by saying, because those tax cuts are temporary on the personal side, because we blocked them, your taxes are going to go up when they expire at the end of the 10-year window, and therefore it's actually a tax hike. If you're pulling your hair out trying to understand the idiots that reside on the left side of the political aisle, please stop. Please, you will lose IQ points trying to figure these people out. It is not possible. They are not figure-outable. And the Washington Examiner piece lays out some actual quotes of Democrats saying that the tax cut, Joe, was in fact a tax hike, using the same perverse, bizarre, stupid logic that you just heard.
Yeah.
I woke up very upset for about a number of things. After watching Papadopoulos' interview last night on Hannity, I'm even more fired up. Okay, point number 2. The quits rate in the economy. Another piece I have up there at the in the show notes today at Bongino.com. Please check it out. The quits rate's gone up. Quitting their jobs. No, folks, that's great news. How is that great news? The quits rate is a measure of frictional unemployment. Frictional unemployment is a good thing, and well, not always, but frictional unemployment is a good thing for the workforce, not necessarily for employers. Frictional unemployment, the quits rate, Joe, is people who leave their jobs, not because they got fired, but they leave their jobs for better jobs. you tracking?
They want to move up.
Right. It's called frictional unemployment because it's not you losing your job. It's you're unemployed only in that temporary period where you leave one job and go to another one. So frictional unemployment is actually at times could be a measure of economic health, not a measure of an economic downturn. Why? Because Armacost, are you going to leave your job if there's not a better one out there for you? Not a trick question. No, you're not. Of course, you're going to stick with the job you have now. But when the economy's humming along, and Joe's a talented guy, listen, I love Joe. Joe's been with me forever, but I have to pay Joe competitively. If I don't pay him, he's going to go take another job. I mean, Really, friendship only goes so far. I mean, I wouldn't be mad at him either. If Joe goes, hey, I got another job for, $500,000, I'd say, listen, you're an idiot not to take it. Go jump on that, buddy. I mean, seriously, I like Joe enough where I'd respect that. But frictional unemployment and the rate of quitting in the economy for another job, obviously, as I just told you, are married together because it's the unemployment period, a rough proxy of the unemployment period that someone has when they leave one job and they take another. When that rate goes up, Joe, that quits rate, it's important because it means that people are getting better jobs. Now, why does that matter? It matters because another one, notice the theme of my show for the last few days, debunking liberal garbage. And believe me, liberal garbage is everywhere. Everywhere you turn, there's liberal garbage. This is going to have a dramatic effect on wages soon. The Democrats have been complaining that wages aren't going up. That is nonsense. The wages are going up. The Commerce Department, the Employment Cost Index have both reported wages going up at a dramatically higher rate than under the Obama administration. Granted, inflation is wiping out some of those gains, but that inflation is largely due to Obamacare and health care costs. And the rate is still higher than it was under the Obama administration. So your argument that wages aren't going up, your question should be compared to what? Right, Joe? Compared to what? Yeah. Wages aren't going up. Compared to what? The Obama years? No, you're absolutely categorically wrong. Wages are going up at a higher rate. I bring this up because that frictional unemployment rate and that quit rate, as they go up, Joe, it means people are leaving for higher paying and better jobs. Meaning those numbers are going to filter through the economy in the coming months, and you are going to see, I think, pretty dramatic wage increases. Again, that's not, to be candid, if you understand even basic tenets of economics, that's not great for employers. You know why, Joe? Because, most employers don't want to pay. Wages are a cost like anything else.
Right. You're going to lose, and you stand the possibility of losing good employees as well.
Yes, bingo. Yeah. Not only do you lose good employees, but the ones you bring in to replace them, you got to pay more. Go. Now, a healthy economy, that's the back and forth. That's always been the argument of a free market capitalist. That when the economy, the Marxist nonsensical idiots who advocate socialism be like, the bourgeoisie, this class of employers, these free market capitalists, they abuse the workforce. You know what? I got news for you. The real power in a growing economy is with the employee, not the employer. But again, don't leave that up to socialists to understand because they don't even understand basic economics. But now employees are going to start demanding more money. So important number, don't forget it. I wanted to make sure I got that out in the beginning of the show because the midterm elections are coming up, folks. If you don't vote, we're in a world of trouble. A world of trouble. There are 27 more district court judges, one more circuit court judge to be appointed. We have Kavanaugh. We need to hold the Senate. We need to hold the Senate. It is critical. We need to hold the House, too. But if we lose the Senate, we are in a world of trouble. And for all my beefs with the Republican Party, and folks, believe me, they are legion. I'm telling you, there is no Democrat I would choose over even the worst Republican right now in the Senate. None. None, under any circumstances. There are no Democrat. If you're in West Virginia and you think, Joe Manchin, he's a nice guy, he's a friend, he may be a wonderful guy. He is not going to vote with you like Morrissey. If you in Indiana, if you think, what is it, Mike Braun and Joe Donnelly? Donnelly's a nice guy, he's a bipartisan guy. No, he's not. On every critical issue that matters to you, Joe Donnelly, Joe Manchin, Heidi Heitkamp, and Claire McCaskill in Missouri will absolutely vote against your interests. Make no mistake. Not only that, they'll be insulated by another 6-year term. Folks, I'm begging you, if you listen to this show, we have a substantial enough audience, thanks to your goodwill and support of my content here, a substantial enough audience to make a difference in elections. I don't say that out of any air of pretension at all. It is your doing, not mine. You like the content, you spread the word, and it's been going great. I am humbly imploring you to stop voting on this personal characteristics. By the way, having run for office and met a lot of these guys up in D.C., I can tell you 90% of them are not good guys anyway, or women. They are there for themselves. So if you're voting on personal characteristics, forget it. I'm not vouching for any of them personally. All I'm telling you is the votes matter. Remember the new rules here. The new rules are we win on the issues, you lose. We win on Trump, you lose. If you vote for these Democrats, thinking they're nice guys, they're bipartisan, you are wrong. They are not. McCaskill, Heitkamp, Donnelly, Manchin have got to go. Bill Nelson in Florida has got to go. We must hold on to the Senate. We must. Stop believing this rank hypocrisy. One more note on this. In case you're saying to yourself, oh, no, I mean, I met Joe Manchin. I met Heitkamp. Because unbelievably, they're running neck and neck in the polls. How is Joe Manchin, a committed Democrat, running neck and neck in the polls in West Virginia, a state that shares conservative values? How is that happening? Oh, he's a nice guy. Who cares? Who cares? Seriously, who cares? I have a doctor I go to. I'll be honest with you, he's not a nice guy. Matter of fact, he's kind of a jerk when I meet him. But you know what? He does really good work, and I've gone back to him multiple times. I'm not going to say who it is. Not that it's not you. You know who I'm talking about because you listen to my show. It's another guy. But who cares? It's not my California buddy. I feel bad because he listens. It's not you. Trust me, it's someone else. But who cares if they're nice guys? Now, I bring this up to tie up the tax cut story. Folks, why is tax cuts 2.0 important? Why is it important if it's not going to pass? It's important because it gets the Democrats on the records being a total fraud. The tax cuts were temporary. Okay, let's make them permanent. Let's not make them permanent. You just complained they were temporary. Yeah, but we were just kidding. It was a partisan talking point. Yeah, we figured that. We figured that. You're a bunch of losers. We're not surprised by that. Now, why isn't it going to pass, Joe? It'll pass in the House. It's not going to pass because in the Senate, the Democrats have threatened to block it. And unlike the reconciliation procedure, this is going to get complicated. But if you understand this, you understand the deviousness of the Democrat Party these days and what complete, utter, total frauds they are.
Okay.
The reason Tax Cuts 1.0 passed was because the Republican Party had to use reconciliation in the Senate to get around a Democrat filibuster threat, which to use reconciliation, they had to make the tax cuts temporary. Got that?
Understood.
The reason we have to hold the Senate is precisely because Manchin, Heitkamp, McCaskill, and Donnelly will all filibuster Tax Cuts 2.0 as well. They can't use reconciliation to make them permanent. So the GOP has already acknowledged that this bill, however good it is, and it's terrific, Tax Cuts 2.0, Joe, is dead in the water. Why?
Okay.
Because the Democrats are threatening the same thing they did with Tax Cuts 1.0. With the Senate Democrats, notably the ones you think are good guys, some of you, not all of you, they're not good guys or women. They're terrible. They vote awful. They are not for you and your values, are threatening again to get in the way of Tax Cuts 2.0, and therefore they can't use reconciliation again to make them permanent. That's why it's dead in the water.
Right.
Folks, I hate the wonkery of Senate and House mechanics, and I rarely get into it because, candidly, it's boring. It's not boring in this case because the mechanics expose the hypocrisy. When you can explain to your liberal friends that the Republicans passed the tax cuts because they had to get around a Democrat filibuster using reconciliation, and that's the reason that the tax cuts are temporary. Do you understand your liberal friends have nowhere to go but you're a racist? They don't have anything else because that's a fact. That's what happened. And when you say to them with Tax Cuts 2.0, well, I assume, being that you're complaining the tax cuts were temporary, that you're going to support Tax Cuts 2.0, which makes them permanent, and you're going to push Democratic senators to vote for it in swing states, I guarantee you your liberal friends will be like, no, I'm not going to push for that. But you just complained about them being temporary. They won't. And I assure you, McCaskill, Manchin, Donnelly, and others will not vote to make them permanent and will be complete, total frauds on it. Why? Because they're Democrats. Remember the line, folks, and don't ever forget this. The real problem up on the Hill can be summed up in this one Bonginoism here. Most Republicans up on the Hill are really Democrats on spending, on the economy. Most Republicans are really Democrats.
Bingo.
No Democrats are really Republicans. Don't ever forget that. My experience with this and talking to these people in the back of cars and other events, driving around, my experience with these people shows many, I shouldn't say most, many Republicans, I'm assuring you, are really Democrats. They think the pro-life movement is a pain in the butt. They're for open immigration. They're for endless spending. They have zero commitment whatsoever to controlling government spending. Most Republicans, many, are really Democrats. No Democrats are really Republicans. That's the problem. And that's why the Democrats absolutely have to go out of the Senate. Get rid of them. Do not vote for them, please. I'm begging you. All right, I want to get into this story because this is really fascinating. And Lee Smith at Real Clear Investigations did an absolutely fantastic job exposing the two-phase leak operation that the government's been involved in, and now the cleanup operation too, which is basically Plan D, and how the media is so knee-deep in this, especially this Adam Entios guy, who is a horrifying example of the lack of journalistic standards in today's media. Before we get to that, today's show also brought to you by our buddies at Skillshare. My family loves this. My wife uses Skillshare for anything related to websites, even for information on podcasts. You want to learn how to start a podcast? Skillshare can help you out. My daughter was using it to learn French. It's really terrific. It's an online learning platform with over 20,000 classes in business, design, technology, and more. These are really well put together classes, by the way, folks. I've watched YouTube. I know some of those times you go on, you can't hear the video. It's a grainy set, not Skillshare. This is high-end stuff. You can take classes in social media marketing, data science, mobile photography, creative writing. You name it, they've got it. Like I said, my family uses it for everything from French to our podcast to my wife learning little website tricks. So whether you're trying to deepen your professional skill set, start a side hustle, or just explore a new passion, Skillshare is there to keep you learning and thriving. Join the millions of students already learning on Skillshare today with a special offer just for you, my listeners. Get 2 months of Skillshare for just 99 cents. That's right. Skillshare is offering the Dan Bongino Show listeners 2 months of unlimited access to over 20,000 classes for just 99 cents.
Damn, I almost didn't catch that one. Nah, shit. Man, I was sitting here talking to you guys and missed the whole fucking thing. Jesus criminy.
Bongino.
All right, Lou.
So, Lee Smith, on it again. Hat tip, Lee, for your great work in exposing the media's role in this operation.
Yeah, babe.
Yeah. The article will be up at the show notes today. It's from Real Clear Investigations from Lee, and it describes this deep media involvement in this quagmire of what's gone on with the operation to take down Donald Trump. Now, just to backtrack a bit to where we were. We did a show the other day talking about the multi-tiered plan to take down Trump and how the plan had to change as conditions on the ground changed. Plan A by the Obama administration to take down the Trump team was unmasking, in other words, spying on them and then unmasking the recipient of the call. So Joe's, you're part of the Obama administration. Mm-hmm. They were listening clearly at this point to Trump team members, conversations with foreign people, people outside the country, and they were unmasking the identity of these Trump team members. That's a fact. We already know that. We have evidence of it, of course, in the Mike Flynn case. The unmaskings were coming in at historic numbers, and they were being done by people, Joe, who had little to no nexus with the intelligence community and law enforcement at all, notably Samantha Power, who was the United States ambassador to the UN. What was she doing unmasking the identity? Basically, listening in on the calls of United States or getting the data on calls from United States citizens. What were they doing, Joe? So that's Plan A. Plan A was shut down when Mike Rogers from the NSA notices that not only are there issues with the database that's used to query a lot of this stuff, but a lot of the access has been given to private contractors, and these private contractors are abusing their access even after their FBI mission's up. So you can listen to the show where I cover that in more detail. Plan A gets shut down when Rogers shuts down access. Mike Rogers of the NSA, who I believe is going to turn out in the end to be a real hero. Plan B is a setup operation. the setup of Papadopoulos, the approaches by Stefan Halper, the approach by Alexander Downer, the approach by Mifsud, all suspicious approaches with connections, people with connections to the intelligence community, and people with suspicious connections to the Hillary Clinton operation.
Mm-hmm.
Plan C. After Trump shockingly wins the election, they're in a lot of trouble. They know they're in a lot of trouble. They need a cleanup operation. Again, cleanup on aisle 4. Bob Mueller comes to the rescue. He comes storming out of the back room like I used to in Key Food with my mop. Hey, listen, I mopped. Get a mop. Remember that show? But I mopped up a lot of messes. Mueller comes in to clean up the mess. Mueller's knee-deep in DOJ and FBI connections. He comes in to clean up the garbage and make sure in the end that the attention is kept exclusively on Donald Trump. Why? To keep it away from DOJ and FBI malfeasance. They do not want this thing exposed. Now, pursuant to Lee Smith's article today, we're going to introduce Plan D. Plan D is a coordinated effort by people within. By the way, Adam Entios, who's knee-deep in this, one of the reporters, calls this a conspiracy theory. Again, proving my point that people like Entios were knee-deep in an actual conspiracy to get information out there about the Trump team. They always accuse you of what they do themselves. So Plan D is a media effort in collusion with leaks from the DOJ and the FBI, a media effort to get stories out there that are unfavorable to the Trump administration. Mm-hmm. That's phase 1. Phase 2 is, as the Spygate scandal is exposed, to constantly push back and change the narrative. So, I want to be clear where we are. Plan D has 2 small portions. It has phase 1 and phase 2. Plan D is the media leak operation. You get it? Phase 1 of the media leak operation. Mm-hmm. Disrupt the Trump agenda, no matter what. That happens during the campaign, Joe, and that happens during the transition, and it happens early in the Trump presidency. Phase 2 of Plan B is to constantly change the narrative to cover the FBI and DOJ's tracks. Now, I want to get into some stories which Lee Smith's piece lays out. Media stories, folks, showing you how there was a coordinated effort between leakers and the DOJ and the FBI. This is not open for dispute, by the way. When I surmise and I'm speculating on things, I tell you that. These are actual stories that were printed. Joe, we clear on this? That involve leaked information that the media would not have had unless they had an asset inside of the government. Let's be absolutely 100% crystal clear. This is not speculation at all. Here are the stories about Plan D. Again, the media FBI DOJ operation. Story number 1. The dossier publishing. This happens early on in the summer of the campaign as it's heating up, as Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton are going at it. Story number 1 is the leaking of details in the dossier. Allegations of Trump connections, business connections to Russians, allegations of collusion. Joe, this is important.
Okay.
Allegations that only appear in the dossier. Now, to be fair here, Fusion GPS may have leaked a lot of this and most likely did leak a lot of this to the media. So story 1, we can't conclusively pin on DOJ and the FBI. You see what I'm saying, Joe? Fusion GPS and Christopher Steele, which had put together this dossier, were known to have leaked information to the media themselves. So that they didn't have to go to the FBI to do that. Now, there are quotations from senior government officials and other things like that, but story 1, the leak of the dossier, which, keep in mind, folks, has been almost entirely discredited. Outside of tangential, unrelated, unimportant details like Carter Page traveled to Russia. So what? Millions of people travel to Russia. That doesn't mean anything.
Right.
The leaking of the dossier story is media effort number 1 to damage Trump during this campaign and drop a hint that he may have been colluding with the Russians. Story number 2. This is still in the damage Trump, phase 1 of Plan D. Damage Trump. Mm-hmm. The Flynn leaks, January of 2017. There is absolutely no question David Ignatius from the Washington Post gets a hold of some classified information here. None. The January 2017 article about Mike Flynn and his conversation with Kislyak was a conversation about there's no way that confirmation that call happened and the contents of that conversation or even allusions to it in Ignatius's piece would have happened without an exchange of classified information. Folks, you understand this? Flynn's conversation being monitored alone and the leaking of the conversation being monitored is a serious breach. What was discussed on the call, details of which start to appear later in Ignatius's piece, is a highly classified leak of an NSA intercept. Highly classified. How did he get that information and why was that information leaked? It's clear as day. Again, story one, the dossier's leaked to put out the story and to seed the media with the idea that Trump's colluding with the Russians based on the farcical dossier. Story number two, Joe, about Flynn's conversation with the Russians is designed to seed again the Russian narrative while also doing significant damage to Mike Flynn.
Okay.
Story number three, we're still in Plan D Phase 1. Disrupt the Trump agenda, make the collusion connection, damage Trump no matter what. But keep in mind, during this phase, media people still believe the collusion thing is real. Don't forget that. They still believe it's real. Because Phase 2 won't make any sense if you don't understand that in Phase 1, while they're damaging the Trump agenda, Joe, the media still believes the collusion story is real. Why is that important here? Think about this, Joe. Think this through for a second, right?
All right.
For as awful as the media is, and believe me, they are awful. They're probably worse than many of you know. I mean, I had to deal with them running for office. They are some of the rudest, most obnoxious, some of the most ignorant people you've ever met. They're not stupid, though. They're not stupid with regards to the business model. They're not going to print something knowingly false that they can't then retract later to save their... Now, they'll print something false if they can hide it. I'm not trying to... Please understand what I'm saying here. I'm not trying to say these are good people. I'm trying to say that they wouldn't print something knowingly false, knowing they'd have to retract it later. If they can hide it, they will. And if I can get to the Kavanaugh story later about that, I will. Does that make sense, Joe? They're not print something that they have to embarrassingly retract later.
Right.
The media at this point is running stories about the dossier, collusion with Flynn, collusion with others, because they really believe this story's true. That's the demarcation point between Phase 1 and Phase 2. Phase 2 is when they realize this story's crap, and now it's like, again, clean up on aisle 4.
Right on,
Story
Donald.
3, the FBI Page investigation, the Page FISA investigation leaks.
Choco Loco, what's going on? Good to see you, lady. Thanks for coming out. We were worried about you. Yaritza.
Lee Smith quotes a book by an insider claiming that the day after Hillary loses, Joe, this was an interesting point, that John Podesta has a meeting with Hillary's communication team. After they lose, they decide that they're going to work strongly together to hatch this Trump collusion story. Now, whether that author's right or not, I don't know. You can judge the veracity of those claims for yourself, but it's cited in Lee's piece. Given the history with the Clintons, I don't doubt it at all. But the FBI Page story is story 3. That the FBI is investigating Carter Page. Carter Page is linked to Trump. Uh-oh, look at this. Now's where the story starts to change. As Lee says, and he's right, and we've talked about this before, but Lee goes into absolutely excruciatingly good detail. This is when it changed to going on defense. What happens, Joe? How does Plan D, the media collaboration to take down Trump, turn from an operation to taking down Trump, Phase 1, to Phase 2, where, we better start pushing back against transparency claims, because if the Republicans in Congress doing the investigating start having these documents exposed, what's going to happen, Joe? People are going to find out we were part of this whole thing. But what changed? The media starts to figure out that this collusion story is BS. And it doesn't stand for Bill Sharkey. And by the way, a guy I was working out in the gym the other day came up to me, said his friend's name is Bill Sharkey, and he thinks I'm after. It is not you, Bill Sharkey. I had a friend, another friend. The last name, Bill Sharkey. I swear. Guy comes up to me in the gym, he goes, you mentioned Bill Sharkey the other day. I got a friend named Bill Sharkey. It's not you, Bill, but thanks for listening. I promise. Have no fear. He's like, why does he hate him so much? I don't hate Bill Sharkey. There's another guy. No, it's a true story. My buddy Andy at the gym. He's like, my friend thinks you were talking about him. Like, I have no idea who that guy is. But thanks for listening. They realize the story's BS. They realize the Russian collusion story is BS. Now the media's got a problem, Joe. Why? Because for the last year, they have been printing articles sourced to senior government officials and anonymous people claiming what? Trump's colluding with the Russians based on what? A dossier that they now find out is complete, utter crap. Again, I'm bringing this up in light of the Democrats. Understand the bigger picture here. The Democrats are now trying to come back on offense again, saying the media leak strategy quotes yesterday by Peter Strzok. We got to develop a media leak strategy to DOJ. This was designed to curtail leaks. I'm laying out for you the leaks. What are you talking about? I'm laying out for you leaks that actually happened. So Democrats, please spare us the garbage, you complete frauds. I'm not interested. At all. Okay, now it switches to defense because they realize it's BS. So what do they have to do, Joe? They now, because they're Democrats, they're not real media people, they have to start to cover the DOJ and FBI's tracks because they don't want the devastating Spygate scandal to be exposed, because the media has told us forever that the Democrats are on the side of like power to the people, they're fighting the man. Now it's apparent that the Democrats are the man.
Right on.
Yeah, they've weaponized government. They've weaponized the IRS. They've used government tools to spy on people. The very definition of what, quote, the man is the Democrats. So the media has to run cover. So now we get to story 4. The media goes on defense and tries to run cover for the fact that their operation was spying on Trump and these idiots were a part of it. Story 4 is the December 2017 article from the New York Times saying Papa D did it. George Papadopoulos. Remember the story initially that the media had been putting out there? I just told you this. Story 3 was the April article before the December article. Obviously, April, December's after April. The April article that Carter Page was a Russian spy and that the FBI was spying on him. And this was the fight. That was the story, Joe. Mm-hmm. Where did that come from? Joe, where did that information come from? The dossier. Carter Page is the dossier. The only credible allegations that Carter Page has done anything wrong are not from the FBI. He's never been charged. Are in the crappy dossier Hillary paid for. So are we clear on this? The story. This is where it moves to phase 2. Right. We screwed up. Story 3. They're still in phase 1. They believe collusion is real. Look, collusion's real. They got this guy Carter Page hired on the campaign. The FBI spied on him. A judge must have approved the warrant. So this has to be real. It wasn't. Now, oh my gosh. Oh, what do we do now? The dossier looks fake. How did this happen? We got worked. We got totally worked. We got played. Our sources are telling us this is real. We were so hoping and praying it was real, but it's not real. And we already printed articles about how Carter Page is a Russian spy or alleged to be a Russian spy. And what are we going to do? We're going to look like idiots. We've been propagating this nonsense forever.
It ain't cool being no jive turkey.
Before Thanksgiving. One of my favorite lines. It ain't cool, and they didn't know what to do. So now, Joe, they have to switch the narrative. They have to flip you. They'll flip you for real. They've got to flip you.
Oh, yeah.
They had to. Because they can't marry themselves to the Carter Page story they printed in April because it's in the dossier, and now they find out the dossier's fake. Folks, if you got to listen to today's show twice, please do it, because there's debunking liberal garbage is so easy. They're trying to backtrack on the fact now that this media leak strategy, these quotes, that they were about some media leak to prevent leaks. These leaks happen. So now another leak happens in story 4 to the New York Times saying, no, Papadopoulos did it. Folks, how would the New York Times find out about that? The answer is they would only find out from Peter Strzok's team. Did Strzok leak it directly? I'm not sure. But there is no way the New York Times would have found out about the investigation into Papadopoulos and the details of it if they didn't get it to the FBI. Why, Joe? Because the New York Times are not federal investigators. They did not conduct the investigation. They don't have the details. The details came from the FBI or the Department of Justice, period. So stop telling me there was no media leak strategy. There was. What the text refers to is still an open question. I don't know exactly what they were referring to. But suggesting there was no media leak strategy while I'm citing to you media leaks they could have only gotten to the FBI makes you look like a complete buffoon. So story 4 is an effort to switch attention away from the dossier and on to Papadopoulos. What's the problem now, Joe? The problem they're having now with switching attention to the Papadopoulos story that he meets with Downer in this London pub for drinks, the Kensington Wine Room, is Papadopoulos is now out, free to talk. And if you saw him last night on Hannity and his other appearances, Papadopoulos is vigorously denying that he had any conversation with Alexander Downer at all about Hillary Clinton's emails. And by the way, Downer is denying he mentioned Hillary's emails either. Folks, please tell me you get this. The media is part of this. They are trying to actively run cover for the DOJ and FBI. But every time they change the story, a roadblock gets thrown up in their way. What's that roadblock, Joe? Facts. Mm-hmm. You cannot change in the past what actually happened. And Papadopoulos, who has shown, he admitted he lied to the FBI. He has shown no inkling of dishonesty on this subject at all, folks. He has admitted, well, that's kind of an ironic thing to say. He admitted he lied while showing no inkling of dishonesty. Yeah. I mean in his telling of his role in this. He admitted he lied. He lied about his original contact with Mifsud. He has not been cryptic about that at all. But he has subsequently said, while acknowledging he did not tell the truth about the date Mifsud contacted him, there is no evidence showing that he's lying about his interaction with Downer. In other words, if the New York Times story is correct and that that the real origination of the FBI investigation wasn't Carter Page now, despite their own reporting in April that it was. If the real story now is, well, Papadopoulos met with Downer and they talked about Hillary's emails. Downer's saying they didn't talk about Hillary's emails. Papadopoulos is saying we didn't talk about Hillary's emails. I don't even remember anything about Hillary at all in this. Folks, are you even remotely curious then why a case was opened up if there's no evidence that this actually happened? You may say, oh, no, there's evidence. It's out there. Okay, where is it?
All right.
Where is it? Why hasn't Bob Mueller produced it? Why did Bob Mueller, the only charge they have on him, was lying about his contact with Mifsud, the date of it, which he's already admitted to? There is no conspiracy allegation. There is nothing. There is no collusion allegation. There's no nothing. They've got nothing. George Papadopoulos is going to serve 14 days in jail for essentially nothing more than getting a date wrong on when he met this guy Mifsud, who, by the way, is whose friend Stephen Rowe is claiming is still alive, and is a Western intelligence asset, Stefan Rowe. Mm-hmm. Folks, that story's falling apart too. Do you understand what they're doing here? The plan D is the media to help cover up the fact that they were investigating the Trump team for nothing. The first nothing was the dossier. The dossier fell apart, so they had to change the story for the FBI, which still won't disclose what paragraph 1 of their report says. What's paragraph 1? How did this start? Then it was, oh no, Papadopoulos did it. He started talking about Hillary's emails with an Australian diplomat. Both people as a party to that, the Australian diplomat Downer and Papadopoulos, now deny it. So now you get story 5 in media collusion. What's story 5? The Washington Post starts running cover for Stefan Halper. Oh man, Russian sources are drying up because the horrible congressional Republicans have exposed Stefan Halper. Keep in mind, they never asked about Stefan Halper's name to be disclosed to congressional Republicans. That is actually an untruth by the Democrats. They did not ask that, Joe. They wanted to know if the FBI had sources. They didn't demand the names, working on Carter Page. So what's the Washington Post's story? Oh, it had a chilling effect on sources. What are they doing there? Again, trying to run cover, Joe. For the operation, the United States government ran against Papadopoulos using a spy in Halper, trying to run cover there. They're trying to run cover there to get the congressional Republicans to not dig deeper. Oh, there's a chilling effect on spies overseas. In other words, don't you dare ask to declassify more, or we'll accuse you of being anti-American. You see what they're doing here, Joe?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It is a huge scam. I just laid out for you 5 stories in 2 separate phases. First, let's advance the collusion narrative. Phase 2 is the, oh, crap, what do we do now? Collusion isn't real. Stage 2, stories that were run to cover the collusion narrative and dissuade Republicans from digging any further and to change the story. Lee Smith lays this all out in his piece today. Folks, the problem the media is going to have now, they can't unprint these stories. These stories about how Carter Page was a Russian spy, according to a fake dossier. These stories in the New York Times about how Papadopoulos, in a night of heavy drinking, which is disputed by everyone, by the way, that they exchanged information with an Australian diplomat about Hillary's emails. It's not true. It didn't happen, according to the people who were actually there. And if the investigation into Papadopoulos was so serious that, according to the New York Times, it started this, why didn't the FBI interview him until months later in January? Why did none of the information come in through official channels? None of it. If it was so important, why didn't Downer bring it up through official intelligence channels? The answer is because it wasn't important. It was crap information. He knew it. And I can almost guarantee you this Downer story is the next shoe to drop. It is a complete, total farce. It is entirely made up, just like the dossier. And the New York Times is not going to be able to unprint that December story. They're part of this, folks. There's no doubt. You can't unprint those stories. And remember, every time they call you a conspiracy theorist, know you're onto something. I'm telling you, especially people like Entios, Adam Entios. He's knee-deep in this whole thing. He doesn't want his role exposed in this either. Okay. Finally, today's show brought to you by our buddies at Betterment. Hey, you're not the average investor. Why would you settle for average? We don't settle for average.
No. Shut up, Dan. You can't say that on here anymore. Jesus. I just clicked over to text something, and Jesus criminy, there he went again. All right, I want to post this, though. All right, there we go. God dang it, Dan.
All this for one.
You got to give us a countdown into your commercials, you fucker. Trying to get me in trouble and shit. He always has apples. Hell yeah, dude. He could be grilling them fuckers on the fire, man. Fire-baked apples are fucking amazing. They're soft and just sweet and... man, I love fire-baked apples. And if you're lucky, you got some sugar and some cinnamon you can put off in them, like gouge out the middle and put butter in them. Oh, Jesus. It's the best thing ever. And you can do it, and the best part is you can do it with even crab apples and shit, and they still taste fucking amazing. Once they bake, they just get so sweet, and all that bitterness leaves and shit. A little sugar, a little cinnamon. Damn. That's eating, boy. You can make yourself sick on that.
The day that, you remember this, Joe, that I strongly doubted that story. And my experience in trying to locate criminals, bad guys, sources, and other things as a former federal agent is that if you are going to hide in today's world, you can only do so in a state-sponsored way. There's almost no way to hide from the network of financial, social media, email, and camera video transactions that people make every day. It's almost impossible. You can only do it with state-sponsored help. As if on cue, Chuck Ross, who does great work at the Daily Caller, just hours after I published the podcast. I'm not saying he listened to mine. He does his own good work. Please don't mistake this for me knocking Chuck. He's doing a tremendous work. But Chuck Ross has a piece up at the Daily Caller I'll have in the show notes today saying what, Joe? Through his own sources that Stefan Rowe, Mifsud's buddy, is claiming that he is alive, of course, and that he has changed his identity. Folks, again, I just don't want you to think you're wasting your time here. I think Chuck Ross has done tremendous work on this. I think he knows more than most people about this case. Mifsud is not dead. I would be astonished if he was. Somebody is hiding Mifsud. The question you should be asking is why not a full court press to find him? Because remember what I keep telling you. The key to this entire case is Joseph Mifsud. Mifsud is the first person to meet with Papadopoulos. Mifsud is the indicator if this is a Russian collusion scheme or if this is a Western intelligence collusion scheme. In other words, an effort by friendlies, Joe, intelligence friendlies to the United States to work with the United States to set up the Trump team. That is the story. Because if Mifsud meets with Papadopoulos and it's a setup, then the case is a setup. If Mifsud meets with Papadopoulos and legitimately has Russian intel, and there was some exchange there, which everybody denies, by the way, of information about the Russians on Hillary, the case would be real. Now, you may be asking yourself then, why is there not a full court press to find Mifsud? Because I'm telling you, Mifsud is not, in fact, was not transmitting information to the Trump team regarding Russian-held information. Does it make sense, Joe? They don't want to find Mifsud.
Right.
Somebody's hiding him. I'm not going to get into who it is because I can't confirm that. I'm just telling you, based on experience here, that somebody's helping Mifsud hide. Mm-hmm. He's not dead. I would be stunned if he is. Read the Chuck Ross piece. You can read the quotes yourself. Okay. You know, one of the things that really infuriates me, gets on my nerves, is the endless efforts to attack Donald Trump with fake news that is so easily discredited that if you did even a modicum of research, you would figure it out. Now, small hat tip to CBS News, who actually did some investigative work on a story that has been getting moved around. Because remember, the media's only interest right now, most of them, obviously not all of them, I'm talking about CBS right now. But most people in the media, Joe, their only goal is to constantly pile on Donald Trump and find narratives. In other words, storylines. So the storyline now, Joe, is going to be Puerto Rico. That's why in the White House Oval Office meeting yesterday with Brock Long, he was asked about Puerto Rico and not the response. When I say Puerto Rico, I mean the hurricane response to Hurricane Maria, right? And the deaths and the death toll, tragic. No question about that. But why was Trump asked a question about Puerto Rico in a briefing about Hurricane Florence coming ashore this weekend to North Carolina? Because the media does narratives. That's what they do. The narrative is Trump is incompetent and could not respond properly to a hurricane event in Puerto Rico, despite the fact that the effort to rescue Puerto Rico, despite its broken electrical grid and its obviously isolated location being an island and not being surrounded by land and roads, made Puerto Rico a uniquely difficult hurricane rescue operation. See where I'm going with this, Joe? The narrative, though, is Trump is incompetent, despite the evidence that that's not true. That there was a historic effort to save Puerto Rico, hindered by incompetence on the ground, a failed electrical grid, a bankrupt island, and just the pure geographics of it being an island. So to advance that story, the media is going to harp endlessly on Puerto Rico to get into another George Bush, Katrina-like moment, showing how incompetent he is. Now, they can't do that with other hurricane responses because the people on the ground are generally happy with what the federal government did. Now, listen, I'm not suggesting that the federal government should play even a prominent role. These should be state and local responses. I live in Florida. The state and localities do it better. It's just a fact. Why send money to D.C. to send it back to Florida? Keep it here. I'm not arguing that. Because some of you will email me and be like, Dan, why are you defending the federal government's response? They shouldn't be me involved in it. I agree. Should be maybe a coordination role, but that's it. I agree. I'm just suggesting to you that the attacks on Trump are going to magnify over the coming days, and you're going to hear, mark my words, take the check to the bank, cash it, spend the money, and invest it. The coming days, you are going to hear more and more about Puerto Rico. Now, to CBS's credit, what did they do? Astonishingly, they went to Puerto Rico, Joe, and started to look around.
Oh.
Started to look around they probably went to look around, by the way, initially, probably to nail Trump to, well, look what's going on in Puerto Rico. And what did they find? They found that the San Juan mayor, Carmen Yulia Cruz, a liberal Democrat hack who hates Donald Trump and has done nothing but bash him. Remember her speech? She's giving a speech about how there's no food aid. Mm-hmm. In front of a bunch of pallets of food aid during the post-hurricane. Do you remember that, Joe?
I do remember that.
She's like, there's no food aid here. She's standing in front of pallets of food. So CBS goes there probably to bash Trump. I shouldn't say. I don't know what they went there for. All right, so let me take that back. I don't want to do what liberals do to us. Maybe they went there to actually investigate the story. Right. What did I find out, Joe? That in government facilities managed by the San Juan mayor, Carmen Yulia Cruz, who hates Trump and did nothing but whine and complain on television instead of actually helping, they found food rotting on pallets. Food rotting on pallets. Joe, not a little bit of food, by the way.
Right, I remember, yeah.
Tons, pallets of food brought in to feed needy Puerto Ricans after Hurricane Maria. To feed them, rotting in government parking lots managed by the same San Juan mayor who complained about Trump. Joe, the CBS report shows a runway, a short airplane runway, with millions, not thousands, not hundreds of thousands, not hundreds, millions of bottles of water brought in aid to provide water to needy Puerto Ricans after Hurricane Maria, sitting there on the runway a year later, totally unusable now.
Oh.
Totally completely wasted. It is a damning expose. Now do you understand why Trump... Listen, folks, you may disagree with the guy's approach. This is why I don't. People died in Puerto Rico. It is a epic human tragedy. There's no disputing that, period, full stop. But that is not what the media is concerned about. The media is concerned about making a political argument, not a human tragedy argument. And the media's argument in the coming days is Donald Trump is incompetent, look at Puerto Rico. Despite the fact that CBS News themselves went to Puerto Rico, saw all this aid, saw all this water, saw the government efforts on the ground, and is now shockingly actually starting to report the facts that maybe the locals on the ground, Joe, really screwed the darn thing up. The story is stunning in its level of honesty about what's going on. Now, again, I don't know what their motives were, but Geraldo Rivera himself, who is, who he likes Trump sometimes, he doesn't like Trump other times, himself has been all over this San Juan mayor. The media is starting to shockingly come around a little bit on this Puerto Rico thing. Some of them, the far left hacks won't, because they realize this is an indefensible position. Okay, one last story I wanted to bring up because it shows just complete media disgusting dishonesty. Kamala Harris, the Democrat senator from California, who is rapidly gaining a reputation as the most dishonest senator up on the Hill, according to a Washington Examiner story today. Mm-hmm. She's running for president in 2020 and is just, some of the stuff she says is so unbelievably dishonest and ethically challenged. You say to yourself, wow, even for politics, we're breaking the floor of new lows here. Joe Kavanaugh at the hearing, Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh at the hearing, when asked a question about a specific lawsuit, he was citing an objection to the providing of abortifacient drugs. So here's the quote from Kavanaugh. He was talking about a group's objection to having to provide to their employees abortifacient drugs.
All right.
Here's Kavanaugh's quote. And remember, when he says they, he's talking about the group. Mm-hmm. Kavanaugh. They said filling out the form would make them complicit in the provision of the abortion-inducing drugs that they were, as a religious matter, objected to. He's quoting the group. Planned Parenthood, these hacks responded by saying falsely, this is from the Washington Examiner piece on this I have in the show notes again today, Kavanaugh referred to birth control, something more than 95% of women use in their lifetime, as a, quote, abortion-inducing drug. False, false, false. Totally, completely made up. Folks, again, how are you a Democrat anymore? They are nothing but liars. We opened up the show talking about their disgusting position on the tax argument, how they're just lying to your face and you're just eating it up. Be honest for a minute. Now on Kavanaugh, he referred to them as abortion-inducing drugs. He is quoting a lawsuit. You complete dip-ns. Kamala Harris piled on, echoing Planned Parenthood's objection and releasing a deceptively edited video, Joe, notably omitting the words "they said," so that it looked like Kavanaugh was expressing his own personal opinion. Kavanaugh, however, was describing the argument made by Priests for Life, who in their brief to his court wrote about 3 categories of products they didn't want to provide or facilitate access to, abortion-inducing drugs being one of them. These people are complete total frauds, folks. I am imploring you, if you are a Democrat, have an ounce of intellectual honesty and dignity, and please just start to tell the truth so we can have honest political debates. Please, if you believe that tax cuts are a scam, say it, but acknowledge you blocked making them permanent. And acknowledge now that Tax Cuts 2.0, you don't want to make them permanent because you blocked it before and you'll block it again. That is an intellectually honest argument. It's the wrong argument. It's the economically wrong argument. Joe, do you see where I'm going with this?
Sure.
But it's an intellectually honest one. Mm-hmm. Acknowledge the fact that Brett Kavanaugh is most likely pro-life, strongly. That's fine. You can disagree with that. But acknowledge you lied. That Kamala Harris editing out "they said" and making it look like Kavanaugh said it is a complete, total, dishonest lie. You have to live in a moral or ethical vacuum to do something so sick. But she has no problem with it because that's who Kamala Harris is. Or else why would she put it out? It's just disgusting. Puerto Rico, one last thing. Acknowledge the fact you may not like Donald Trump. You may not like his bravado. But insisting that Donald Trump didn't do everything he can through his administration. By the way, I disagree with the federal response. It should be a state response. I'm telling you that. You don't have to agree with me. But simply sitting there claiming while they sent pallets of food and water in that they don't exist while they do, while also letting them rot in the back of government buildings you manage while attacking him is absolutely disgusting. This woman should resign stat. All right, folks, thanks again for tuning in. Thanks for all the clicks on my Spygate article. I'll include it again in the show notes today. It has diagrams of all the players, little diagrams. It makes all their connections so you can visually see how they're all connected. Please check it out. I'll put it in today's show notes. It's long, but it is definitely worth your time, and it's a real good summary of what's in my book, which I promise you'll love. Thanks for tuning in. I will talk to you all tomorrow.
You just heard the Dan Bongino Show.
All
Get
right.
more of Dan online anytime at conservativereview.com. You can also get Dan's podcasts on iTunes or
Not healthy at all, just like the Progmaster Chef. I don't know. I don't claim any of my food to be healthy other than the fact that my people have eaten it for at least a generation that I know of. And all my old people lived well into their 90s. My grandpa, he's the only one that barely crossed the line at 92, My great-grandfather was 96. My grandmother was 94. My great-grandmother was 97 or 98 when she died. So I think if you eat, just eat a balanced diet. Eat a little bit of everything. Don't overdo any one thing, because if you do, you're going to run into trouble, I think. I was born in 92. In 1992, I was serving time in solitary for stabbing a guy over a lunch tray. I was hungry and that some bitch touched my food, man. I lost my fucking shit. It was a bad day to be him. I actually stabbed him with my fork. I didn't have anything else. Right in the face. Forks are pretty effective weapons, I gotta tell you. Filleted his ass pretty good. To this day, it looks like some kind of mutant vampire attacked his cheek. He members me real good. Fork you, dude. Man, you don't play with a motherfucker's food in there, man. That gets you stabbed up quick. Don't play with a motherfucker's money. Don't play with a motherfucker's food. Don't play with a motherfucker gambling. They kill you. Okay, you die now. No time talkie, Senretta. Yeah, man. Dallas, that's your cue. So I just ordered a pizza by Domino's. I love that that Holland has Domino's. That gives me true hope for the world, man. The fact that the European Union has Domino's pizza, I am now absolutely convinced that we will not be broken. We will not be defeated. Dallas is like, I'm on my way. I'm hitting Cleveland International right now, man. Hold on, Gus, your fucking pizza's coming. Well, there goes the 30 minutes or less thing, though. Because I don't think we got planes that fast. I go one down the road here. Right on, man. I love that. Fucking Holland Pizza Hut. I wonder if Holland Pizza Huts are different than American Pizza Huts. Or Domino's. Sorry, Domino's. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, we have that, but we put mayonnaise on it here. Or whatever, you know? I mean, you can always just be like, nah, let's go hold the mayonnaise, man. That's all right. Oh, yeah, and mayonnaise, too. No mayonnaise, man. Not on my pizza. I can't do that. Hold the mayo. That's right, man. Although when it comes to my fish, bring the mayo on. I am a mucho mayo motherfucker when it comes to fish. And taters. I like mayo on my taters. Like when I make mashed potatoes, I always put like a quarter cup of mayo in it. Instead of like milk or something. You know what I mean? And it just makes them super creamy. Makes your taters totally badass. A little salt and pepper, a little garlic. Oh, man. Yeah, sour cream and potatoes too. I've done that before, like mix it right in with your mashed potatoes. Oh, heck yeah, it's good. Like, I ain't eating it with a spoon or nothing, but yeah. In taters, it's fantastic. I only use mayo when there's no sour cream. Right on. I like the mayo way. I enjoy it. Like, I make it just as often with mayo as I do with sour cream. I ran out of Vegemite. That's great on cheese. I don't know. Just like even the name sounds gross. Vegemite. For taters. Yep. I am as big a tater fan as you're ever going to find in the Irish culture, man. Love me some taters. I must have been like alive during the potato famine last time. Look up Vegemite. Yeah, I know, it's just gross. I looked up what it was and it's terrible, and I'm I actually looked it up in the 80s when that song came out, you know. He just smiled and gave me a Vegemite sandwich, right? I had to know what Vegemite was, so I looked it up. And I was like, yeah, it pretty much looks as horrible as it sounds. I tried a Vegemite when I was living with a Brit, not to my taste. Right on. You know, there are some weird, like, cultural foods like that just don't really cross cultural borders. You know what I mean? Like in Mexico, I love burritos and tacos and tortillas, and yeah, you can stack me up with all that stuff you want. But like they do, like a big thing down there is tripe tacos. And again, I'm just like, no, I'm not eating that. I don't care how broke I am. I'm not eating tripe tacos. It's fucking horrible. But they love them down there. Like, they eat them right off the carts by the handfuls. Lots of vitamin B's in those veggie and other mets. Yeah. I'm sure there is. Anything that tastes bad like that's gotta be good for you. You know what I mean? Yeah, I know, right, Deborah? Yeah, it's not it's not good. But you get some of that beef barbacoa going down there. Oh my goodness. Throw that in a burrito with some rice and some beans, a little sour cream and some hot sauce, some grilled jalapenos. Oh my goodness. Wrap him up like a burrito. Oh, that's good. You got to be an Aussie to fully appreciate Vegemite. I think that may be true. It's a very regional food. I think that is like the Australians thing. Bush guy, not gonna do it. Who does anyone? Oh yeah, not gonna do it. Not gonna raise taxes. Read my lips. Dana Carvey, that's the guy's name. I knew it would come to me eventually. It takes me a moment sometimes. The computer gets a little bogged up. Black pepper and turmeric. Yeah, no doubt. Lung cleanse on the way. Silver gargle. Hell yeah, man. I know, I laugh at myself all the time, man, because I'll be like, what the hell was the name of that thing that's a thing that I need to know the name of, and I can't think of it because my brain is misfiring right now. And then 20 minutes later, while I'm in the middle of doing something completely unrelated, it'll come to me. You know? Like, Jack Bergenstock. That's that guy's name. Jesus Christ. Can't wait to see what the lung cleanse does. Yeah, keep us posted on that, Dallas, because, you know, I might be getting on that boat. Expensive or not. Donald Martino could not finish the Vegemite. Well, there you have it. I think I can safely say that Donald Martino is right in the mainstream of what people like to have in their mouths. He's right in the middle 70%. That's what I'm shooting for. That's the 70% that doesn't eat tripe and doesn't like Vegemite. You 30%ers, you carry right the hell on. Hate when that happens, sick. Yeah, right? Oh, nice, Deborah. Right, I hear you, Don. Well, you know, this is one of those things, like, if it would work real well for Pops like that, you know what I'm saying? You know, I'll find a way to get the money. If I gotta have it, I gotta have it. You know what I'm saying? Spend some more time away from the computer or some shit. Do something constructive, for fuck's sake. Get a haircut. Get a real job. Holy fucking crime in Italy. What's wrong with these people? Joe Normal, I need you to put your hands on your head and step away from me very slowly. You don't feel safe right now. Yeah, I do. I feel fine. No, you don't. You don't feel safe right now. Because I know you're smart. Oh, God, no, don't do that. Yeah, man. No doubt, Don. Look, man, some things you just do because that's what you're going to do. I mean, if I added up all the free shit I did for people, I don't know what, I'd probably have $1 million. Take this job and shove it. I ain't working here no more. Let me see. Load them up. It's almost 4:20. Yeah, it is, ain't it? 18 after the hour. All right, well, we got through Bongino. I loaded up a little something. I wish Mikey was here, Mikey B. Because, in a word, gone. I'm going to assume it was pretty good. He ate it all. All right, so I loaded this up for Mikey B, but he's not here tonight, but I'm still going to play it. I was hoping he'd swing through. Oh, well.
Do you understand what I just said?
Sorry, can you explain it again?
Arrest and suspicion causing a breach of the peace.
What does that mean? What does that mean? What does that mean, officer?
One question, something which you may
What does that mean? What does that mean? What does that mean?
Tommy, we all saw you get in the back of that police car, that police truck. What happened after that?
So, everyone saw visibly I was arrested for breach of the peace. What I find surprising is no one's ever mentioned breach of the peace. No one's ever mentioned the fact that's what I was arrested for. I was arrested for breach of the peace and I was driven to Leeds Ellen Road police station, so a 10-minute drive from the court. I got to the police station. Now, anyone who's been arrested knows the first thing they do is they take you to the front desk where you're booked in for your crime, you're asked if you want your solicitor, and then you're put in a cell to wait for your interview. This was different straight away. I wasn't booked into the police station. I was held in a side room at the police station for probably 40 minutes, which straight away I was thinking, the police station's not going to be busy. It's in the morning. And I was then taken, I got brought to the front desk and told I'm being moved to court. I'm being taken straight to court. Again, I asked for breach of the peace. They said no, for contempt of court. So then they took me in a police wagon in the back of the court, and I was taken to the courtroom. What actually transpires is that, now, when people have to ask why this happened in this way, because if they'd have arrested me outside the court for contempt of court, and everyone would have known I'd been arrested for contempt of court, because my solicitor contacted the police station as soon as I'd been arrested. I said I want a solicitor. They spoke with my solicitor, and the police station told my solicitor, Alison Gurdon, that I was being released. I wasn't released. And then when I arrived at the court, I again asked for my legal multiple times. I said I want to speak with my solicitor. I was told I couldn't speak with my solicitor. Now, if my solicitor had known, if there wasn't a breach of the peace and I'd just been arrested for contempt of court, my solicitor would have known to send a representative to the court. But they refused me point blank. I was not allowed the opportunity to speak with my solicitor.
So why did they tell your solicitor that you had been released if you had not been released? Did you ever walk free of the police station or the courthouse?
No, I was transported straight from the police station in the van, straight into court, straight into a cell of court, and then refused the opportunity to speak with my lawyers, and brought up before the judge. I stood before the judge where he watched, I'd say, 7 minutes of the video. Remember, it was over an hour long.
Right.
He watched 7 minutes. I was then put back down in the cell. Still, I was asking for my solicitor. I was then a prepared lawyer that was at the court was then put before me, where I told him, again, I want to speak to my solicitor.
So this was a public defender?
A public defender, who I asked, again, can I speak to my solicitor? And I asked him, what is it I've said? What is it I've done? Yes. I was not told. He just said contempt of court. I said, but what? It's still sitting here now. Bearing in mind I'm going to face another trial in a few weeks. I've still not been told what I've said. In fact, this trial was supposed to happen today on the 4th of September. The reason it's been put back is because they still haven't told me what it is in that hour-long video that breaches contempt of court.
Can I take you back to when you first met the judge and he watched 5 or 7 minutes of the video? Did he ask you any questions or say anything, or did you just sit there while he watched it?
I sat there while I watched it. I made it clear that if there was a problem, I'd delete it. If there's a problem with it, I would delete it instantly if there was a problem. I think that lots of people have read so many things. I remember getting to prison and reading in reports that I pled guilty. I was never asked if I was guilty or not guilty. I was never asked. I was never told what crime I committed. So bearing in mind, I know this. I know what's happened in court. I know that I'd asked can it not get adjourned so that I can speak with a QC? In fact, that come out in my appeal, because in the defendant's notes it said that I'd asked and said I want to speak to a QC, and I was sentenced to 13 months in prison.
So the first time you went before the judge and he reviewed the video, did you have your public defender lawyer with you then?
No, I had no one with me then.
So then when you were given this public defender, did you appear before the judge a second time?
I did. I appeared before the judge a second time, where the defence man said that basically if he went up and apologised, then that's it. And we went through previous cases, for example, so that people understand. Like Jamie Bolger's killers live under a court order that no one can name them. People have named them. They've been before court. No one's ever been put in prison. Rod Liddell, who's a reporter for the Sunday Times, he breached a reporting restriction on the Stephen Lawrence murder trial. He apparently nearly jeopardised the trial. He was given a fine. No one, if you go through the law, so as well, if you read the law on contempt of court, which was so disheartening for me, and so I'd been put in prison, I'm sat in prison, I'm reading all of these newspaper reports. Not one journalist, no one, fought to go and get the transcripts from that court, to go and find out what was said in that court. If anyone would have done that, they'd have instantly seen that I did not plead guilty, that I was not given a fair trial, that it was over in minutes. They'd have seen all of this.
I thought you had pled guilty because I read that in so many newspapers. I assumed you did, either under bad advice or no advice. Did the judge ask you whether or not you admitted or to anything? Did he ask you any questions?
No, he didn't ask me any questions, no. I did not open my mouth the whole time.
Did the judge particularize anything you said or did wrong? Did he say you said this word or you did that thing?
Nothing actually. What it comes out is that Section 4 is the reporting restrictions. The judge had put a reporting restriction on this case. Now, anyone, again, just go and read the law. It's what I did. I'd previously gone for days of training on contempt of court. I read the law. The law states that the judge has no power to put any reporting restriction on any information that's already in the public domain. Now, everything I said outside court that day was already in the public domain. I knew things, I still know things about that case, about results of that case. I still know lots of things that I've never mentioned because I was aware that you couldn't mention them. But the judge, and then when the judge sentenced me, so he sentenced me apparently for breaching the reporting restriction, but then in his words of what he sentenced me for, which come out in the High Court of Appeal, it was more to do with the fact that I was mentioning that they were Muslim. And so it seemed that, and he talked about the risk of me prejudicing the trial. Well, that's not the Section 4 that he sentenced me under. He sentenced me under basically breaching reporting restriction. And to all the people who I read all the things saying I risked the trial, I read all of this. The trial had finished. And bearing in mind, I would do nothing. I wouldn't do nothing that I thought could jeopardise these trials. It would go against everything I stand for and everything I want. The trial had finished. I stood outside court. I made sure that I didn't video any members of the jury, because I know you can't, any members of the public. I literally, the crime that I was sent to prison for was breaching a reporting restriction. And 2 weeks after I was sent to prison, obviously I'm reading everything, I read that the Scottish Telegraph newspaper breached 2 reporting restrictions the weeks after I went to jail. Again, if we go to the laws, the law and the advisory to the government is that they should not send if anyone breaches a reporting restriction, it shouldn't even be the individual journalist who gets done, it should be the company they work for. And they strongly advise that all it should be is a fine. Now, as everyone's seen, I was sent to prison.
Did your lawyer, the public defender who was assigned to you, did he indicate that he had any experience with contempt of court law? Was he familiar with your legal history?
No, he just indicated that we don't want to upset the judge.
Did he ask for a delay of a week or two? Did he ask for any time for you to prepare or for him to prepare?
No. No.
How long were you actually in the court for?
10 minutes. In fact, they were desperate to do it before lunch, Lunch would have been at 1 o'clock. They were desperate for lunch, but I was still arguing the point with everybody that I wanted to speak to my solicitors. And so it went over lunch. If not, I'd have been sent to prison before lunch, before 1 o'clock.
Did you? And you
Then they broke for the hour lunch. So when they broke for the hour lunch, then I was again saying, I just wanted to speak to my solicitor.
Did you ask the judge for a delay or for the ability to speak to your own lawyer?
No, I didn't open my mouth. I didn't get a chance to speak. So
But you asked the police?
I asked the police, I asked the court clerks, I asked the person who come. I pressed the button on my cell, which is all documented.
Yeah.
I pressed the button and come to my cell. I said, I need to speak to my solicitor. I need to speak to my solicitor, not a solicitor that's just been put in front of me by the state. Essentially, a solicitor that I trust, a solicitor that I know is going to work for my best interest. That's who I want to speak to.
Did anyone else speak in your hearing? Did any court police? There was a picture circulating on the internet of some people looking down from a brick building. I don't know if that was the judge or court police or a clerk.
So that was the judge and the police that arrested me. So that was the judge when I was outside court, which I wasn't aware of until I come out. That was the judge watching down, and then the police come down and arrested me.
Did they say anything in court?
No, nothing. And then the other thing is, if you read the law, again, I can't believe journalists have not done this. If you read the law specifically states that because contempt of court gives the judges, there's no laws like this in America and other countries. Contempt of court gives the judges so much power to themselves. They can arrest someone, try them, convict them and sentence them. There's no jury. So I'm not going to be found guilty by 12 members of the British public. I'm up before a judge who deems I've done wrong and a judge who deems what sentence he can give me. Now, because of the amount of power that gives a judge, then under the law, the contempt of court law, that judge, under no circumstances whatsoever, that's the wording of it, can put any restrictions or reporting restrictions on the public being told what has happened if he sentenced someone under contempt of court.
And that's what happened, though.
He instantly said that there'll be reporting restrictions. No one is allowed to know what's happened.
Were there reporters in that courtroom? I understand there was someone from the Leeds local newspaper there.
There was, yes. None of them commented. None of them made any comment. None of them said a word, which is why I was sent to prison. And then I started reading that because of some of these newspapers then challenged that reporting restriction a week later. What my point is entirely on this reporting restriction. So people are saying that it wasn't I risked giving someone a fair trial. These reporting restrictions have been put on every Muslim grooming gang trial case. Now, if they wasn't put in place, then every day the British public would be fed the news stories of what these men are doing to these girls. For example, in some cases, they took a 12-year-old girl with a claw hammer. When they got her pregnant, they stuck the claw hammer up her and they killed the kid. Yeah? They killed the baby. In other circumstances, they got a hot iron rod and they stamped a young 11-year-old girl on her butt. These sort of sadistic, racially motivated and religiously motivated crimes, the comments, all of the stuff from this case would be played out each day. By putting a reporting restriction on the case, which is what they do, you'll have a year's worth of trials. There's another trial starting tomorrow with another 31 people. There's trials going on across this country every week. But they put these restrictions. So then what happens is no one can talk. Yeah? No one can talk about what's happening in court. And they say it's so that the other people can have a fair trial. I don't understand what difference it makes. Now my point is these laws, I'd say, are anti-freedom laws. They're laws preventing 60 million people in this country reading and knowing what's happening each day. Their job should be to prevent the jury, the 12 members of the British public. If you need to prevent people hearing and understanding things, it's them. When you become a member of the jury, you're told, I've seen it in court many times, you're not allowed to go on the internet, you're not allowed to research this, you're criminally not allowed to look at videos, you're not allowed to look at anything to do with this trial, or you go to jail. Yeah? So they're not allowed to. So why are these conditions put on that then prevent daily news stories where we'd be hearing the stories? Basically, they'll lift the reporting restriction at the end of the trial and you'll get one day's news. One day's news about the horrific torture of hundreds of young children, the horrific the circumstances, the reasons, the comments from the men, the perpetrators doing it, all of these things then are put under a restriction from the public hearing. With recent, and it's not just this. I see that recently in London we had a case of terrorism where the public have not been allowed to know at all, which is in national security, what the men were doing, what crime they were. What they were planning to do to members of the British public. Now, so that I've seen so many things like this, where I'd say are secret courts in Britain, and I've seen that in the Muslim grooming gangs or the rape jihad trials that are going on across this country, these same tactics. And I'm yet to ask. I've asked multiple lawyers, tell me standing outside trial. I made sure to say those men are innocent until proven guilty. I made sure to remain calm and respectful. I simply asked them how they felt about their verdict. The public watch as, whether it be Rolf Harris, whether it be other groups, whenever anyone else walks into court, every time I walk into court, I'm bombarded with cameras and questions and comments, every time. But then for some reason, for these Muslim grooming gang trials, no one's allowed to speak.
I was actually watching your Facebook live stream that day, May 25th, from Canada.
Yeah.
And I remember when you read the names of some of the accused men. And I think you were reading them from a BBC website, is that correct?
I read them from a BBC website. There's lots of... So everything... I just read out...
So did you tell that to the judge? Because how could you reading something off a BBC website that was being published at the same time, how could that be contempt of court?
This is the problem. The judge hasn't told us what was contempt of court. So he sentenced me to prison without needing to tell anyone.
Did you go into the trial at all? Did you go and sit in and listen to the trial?
No. When I got to court that morning, this is the other thing that if you read the guidelines for the court and for judges, when they put reporting restrictions on a case, they must be visible on the door of the court and they must be visible on the screen. I went into court that morning. I questioned about reporting restrictions that morning. Before.
Who did you ask?
I asked the man at reception. He said he didn't know. I then looked on the screen, which had the defendants' names, and there's nothing on the screen of a reporting restriction. Okay? I have a photograph of this. Okay? Then, when he put the report, when he sentenced me, then and only then, they changed the screen.
The reason I asked if you sat in the court is if you didn't sit in the court, you couldn't say anything that was going on in the court. You were just outside giving general opinions and reading from the BBC. Did you... I don't recall you saying anything that would say...
I made sure that I didn't say anything that wasn't in the public domain. Every bit of information I get was on websites. Now, if the reporting restriction that the police want to put in, then they need to go contact the BBC, all the national newspapers. They need to go contact anyone, because any member of the jury, everything I said, any member of the jury could have sat on their computer and read. But the judge has no power to put reporting restrictions on any information. That's the law, which again, I have all these experts and these secret barristers and these journalists and politicians and all of them sending out a generic response that I pleaded guilty. That's why I'm in prison. And I deserve to, because I risked prejudice in a trial that had already finished. The jurors were there to give their verdict, to give the result of their verdict.
I've seen Mohan Singh, a friend of yours, did a video in front of that same courthouse on another day saying very similar things. He read the names also. I've seen other British media have a flurry of interest in court cases, really not much different than yours on that day. Did the judge refer to any precedent? Did he say anything about you and your history? Was there anything in that hearing that day that would explain why he had such a fast trial and a heavy sentence, given how other media and other citizen journalists are treated?
No, what else transpires is that there's, in the transcripts, because that's what my solicitors were waiting for, which anyone can go get. Again, journalists, you can go get them. Get the transcripts from the court case. You'll see that although he sentenced me, and he sentenced me as well for having a 3-month suspended sentence, there was no mention of the 3-month suspended sentence. He done no research or mention in the court at all of finding out that I was on a 3-month suspended sentence. He knew, without me mentioning it in the court. No one mentioned it in the court. He knew, and I'd say they were already, well, I know they were aware by comments that were made to me by police officers, that the police officer in charge of the grooming trial, who come to see me after I was sentenced, they knew I was going to be at that courtroom that morning.
You saying the judge knew?
No, I can't say the judge knew. The police were aware.
The court police?
Yeah,
So how?
Because the police seized my phone. So on top of this, what I was arrested for was breach of the peace, and then they mentioned incitement. That's what they mentioned to me. Now, even after I was sent to prison for 13 months, a lead officer from South Yorkshire Police come and saw me in my cell and said, "Give us the password for your phone." And I said, "Why?" He goes, "We're seizing your phone." I said, "What for?" He goes, they were looking at other crimes of incitement. It's exactly
did you give him the password?
No, I didn't know.
Do you have your phone back yet?
No, I don't know. No, they still have my phone. And
did he have a warrant for your phone?
No, this is what I said. I've been sentenced under contempt of court. Under what grounds? And I kept asking him this. Under what grounds? Now, anyone who doesn't know the history, this is South Yorkshire Police. South Yorkshire Police who illegally arrested me and raided my mum's and my house. This is all factual as well. They've accepted. They sent their police officers on training courses in 2010 actually. In 2010, I was due to speak in South Yorkshire again about grooming and about the rape of young girls. This was before it was public knowledge, before everyone knew everything about these cases, before everyone had accepted and admitted that the government and the police had conspired with religious leaders to allow this rape to happen. Before that was all public knowledge, before the Rotherham report, before all these things. South Yorkshire Police, I was due to be talking about it. What South Yorkshire Police did is they sent 30 police officers. I was arrested at the airport. They then raided my mum's and raided my house. They then gave me bail conditions not to hold protests, and the bail date they gave me was to prevent me talking. So I have a long history with this same police force who have done anything they can to attempt to prevent me talking about these issues.
So he came and he came right to your cell, did he?
They took me out of my cell to see this police officer.
Were you required to meet him, or did you just...
No, they said... And they took me into him, and he was the lead police officer.
How long was that meeting?
5 minutes. Yeah. I just said, "I'm on my way to prison."
Yeah.
Like, what do you want from me?
Let me get back to something you said earlier about... You mentioned that a year ago, I remember when you were with the Rebel... there was a contempt of court case in Canterbury, and there was a 3-month suspended sentence there. I just want to clarify, are you saying that was never mentioned in the Leeds court?
No, never mentioned.
But
so basically, when I spoke to my lawyers, when I spoke to my solicitors, they said on the transcripts there's no mention of your 3-month contempt. So how's he sentenced you on a 3-month contempt if there's no mention of it?
Sounds like maybe there was some information, some reviewing of information
that wasn't said in court, outside of court, which it shouldn't have been. I don't know. I wasn't aware it shouldn't have been, but from what I understand, it shouldn't have been. Whilst we're on the Canterbury court case, because I see so many people saying it's the second time he done it, he's not learned his lesson. For my previous contempt of court, there was a young girl who was lost, and she went into a kebab shop and she asked for directions. She was a child. She was taken to a flat upstairs by 5 men and raped in every hole she has. Okay? Now, they found their DNA. So these men, one of the men fled to Afghanistan, I believe that's where he's from, or Italy, but he was from Afghanistan. They found their DNA. So all 5 men's DNA were at the scene, on the victim, everywhere. Okay? Because when she came out, she was distraught. These men were given bail. Now, I was informed of this. I went down to their takeaway. It was called 777. Yeah, this takeaway, this kebab shop where they raped the victim. I then went. They just changed the name, and then I heard that they're still running this shop. So I went and looked at the shop. They locked the doors. They shut the doors. They were still running the shop. I checked the ownership name on the system to see who owns the new company name. It's the same man, the man who's up for raping a child. I then went and spoke with the business over the road, and I spoke to customers of the business over the road saying, "Have you seen any young girls in that shop?" And they said, "Yes, there was some young schoolgirls in there yesterday." or school-age children in their essay. So in my eyes, okay, and in fact in the whole British public's eyes, these men should never have been given bail. Yeah, they should. So I know that the judge will not like me for saying this, but the judge left the British public and our daughters and our sisters for too long, and they've been at risk, left them at risk again. These men were on bail. These men are all now serving 20 years in prison for the rape, but at the time they weren't. These men were freely still in mixing with young children. Their business was still running. They were still using the same premises. And I went down there because I wanted to make a video, which I said at the time, that I want the public and I want everyone in that area to know who these men are and what they're alleged to have done. Now, at that time, I wasn't sure of all the laws of contempt of court. And I went there from my straight from my full heart, that I was angry, I was frustrated, and I couldn't believe what I saw. I saw that these men were still running the business. If there was a chance that they were going to get not guilty, for example, if they didn't have all of their DNA on the young child, right, but they did have their DNA. So in my mind, I've been remanded. People who be sitting watching this who get remanded into prison, they don't get bail. Why have these men been given bail? And in fact, it's been proven that they were all guilty at the time. But the judge took me before. As soon as I went outside the court, the judge let them use the back exit because she didn't want me. She didn't want them to be at risk from me. The 5 men who have gang raped a child would be at risk from me putting a camera in their face.
So this was the Canterbury.
This was at Canterbury. This is when I was working.
Yeah.
This is when I was working with you, Ezra. Yeah. And then the police raided my house the next morning at 4:30 in the morning, and I was judged before I was put before the judge. And the only reason I can see is that she knows that she failed in her duty to protect the British public. She failed by giving them bail, so she took me before her court. And she sentenced me, and even when I watch that video now, there were things that I said wrong on that video.
But I remember that when you were with the Rebel, we had a session at a senior law firm.
Afterwards, yeah.
Kingsley Napley, and we brought in a lot of lawyers and we went over contempt of court and other things that you as a citizen journalist should be careful of. And so when I watched you in Leeds, I was nervous. I'll admit it, I was nervous, but I thought, okay, he's careful, he's not stepping on the court premises. He's carefully saying accused rapist or alleged rapist. He's not saying they're guilty.
In the training day we spent, in the training days we spent to understand contempt of court, which I didn't understand, is you're not allowed to stand on court. I didn't understand at Canterbury. You're not allowed to stand on the court property.
And so you didn't.
That's contempt of court.
You didn't in Leeds.
I didn't in Leeds. I actually asked the police officer, where's the land lie, and he agreed. So I didn't in Leeds. I also, every time you speak of an offence, you have to speak of an alleged offence. Yeah. No matter how much evidence there is, I knew those men were guilty as soon as I knew they did, but you have to say alleged offence.
And you checked that box too. I thought you've been very careful.
I was very careful.
So what exactly? So you still don't know what they put you away for because the judge never said.
No, the judge. To
this day, that you don't know what you've said wrong.
No, I have no idea. I have no idea. I'm about to stand a trial again in a number of weeks. Still today, we have not been told what it is. So I expect they'll throw it on us a week before, maybe. They'll throw, here's what we're saying, breached the reporting restriction. And bearing in mind, anyone can research this. Go look up Rod Liddell's case. He breached the Stephen Lawrence murder trial. The murder trial nearly collapsed. The Spectator run the story. Now, because they deleted it quickly, okay, and because they removed it quickly, he was given a few £1,000 fine. But bearing in mind that this is what their advice is. Their advice is that they don't seem, I always say this word wrong, draconian, so that the government don't come across as draconian. They shouldn't be imprisoning journalists. I've even seen right now, there's a massive, contempt of law has been going for 70 years. Never ever has any journalist ever been put in prison.
It was shocking. I want to ask you one last thing about that court hearing, because you say it was 7 minutes. That's incredible to me, given that your video itself was more than an hour.
I didn't watch the video. Hadn't watched the video. It would have been impossible. It would have been impossible for the judge to have watched the video.
It takes an hour to watch the video.
And if it had watched the full video, it'd have seen all the steps and all the reasonable things I made and said, the different interactions I had with the public. I made sure that I stayed within the law, on what I'd been taught was within the law.
Now, Contempt of court is not a crime. There's no guilty mind. It's a strict liability offense. Either you did it or you didn't, even if you didn't mean to. And you've already said in no way would you want to derail a trial, and you said that you would have taken the video down if it were to put a trial at risk. So there's clearly no guilty mind. You obviously did not mean to disrupt the trial. Am I right?
Of course. From what I understand is that basically, so reporting restrictions can be put on, and there's no way of anyone knowing where what reporting restrictions are on. And the government were advised in 2014, again, anyone who reads up on this can find this, they were advised that they must have a national website. And that national website must inform journalists so that if for example, I know there's a case starting tomorrow. Yeah, it's at Kirklees Magistrates Court. It's 31 men are going to appear for the first time. 31 Muslim men are going to appear for the first time for another huge gang rape, again in the same city as the previous 30 that I was reporting on, in that same city. Now, there's no website, there's no way of checking whether there's restrictions. There's no way of knowing. Yeah. Now, the government were advised to set up a national website. They haven't done that. I hope that after this, they set up a law which would tell the government and the courts that they have to make it visible for journalists to understand what they can and can't say.
When you were convicted, did the judge in any way indicate the difference between being a criminal convict, someone guilty of, someone with a guilty mind who broke the law willingly, versus civil contempt? Did the judge differentiate between the two in the sentence he issued?
No, the judge didn't mention. So in fact, myself, so for contempt of court, you cannot be a criminal prisoner. Okay, you're a civil prisoner.
And what's the difference in how a criminal prisoner and a civil prisoner are treated?
So civil prisoners have more rights. Civil prisoner have as many visits as you want. So people can come in and visit you, your family.
Every day?
Yeah, every day. Again, anyone can read these facts. Yeah? Also, they're allowed to spend £50 per week buying food, buying toiletries, buying whatever they want off of the shopping system within the prison. Also, so for my crime, for the crime of contempt of court...
Not even a crime, though.
No, not even a crime. You go to an open prison. So you'd be in an open prison where you go home at weekends. Yeah, it's a category D offence, a completely minimal, completely zero risk offence of contempt of court. That's what the guidelines are. That's what the criteria is. That's how a prisoner should be held.
So a civil prisoner gets as many visits as he likes, gets to spend £50 a week on whatever...
You can buy food, shopping, and also...
And how far does £50 go in a prison? Is it cheap?
No, it goes quite well. So the difference, here's when we can get to the difference. So I was put into prison and I was held as a criminal prisoner. Now, people may think that was a mistake, yeah? I was held as a criminal prisoner, even though I can't possibly be held as a criminal prisoner because it's a civil crime. Even though, which we have all the evidence of this, my solicitors made the prison aware instantly he's being wrongly held if you're not, if you're holding him as a criminal prisoner with, because I was only allowed to spend £12 a week.
And we'll get to why that's important in a minute, why spending money was important in your case. But why don't we pick up from when the judge issued the sentence, 13 months. Were you shocked?
Yeah, of course, yeah, I was gobsmacked. I was gobsmacked. But at the same time, for what has happened over the past 10 years with myself, it's not, I've known, and even if in the most recent demonstration when we had a day for freedom in London, I was saying, and I kept saying to everyone, I wonder what they're going to do next to try and stop, because they can see, anyone can see the momentum building. The public are not listening anymore. They're not buying the media spin on things. They're seeing the reality of the problems the country faces, and the attempts to make me the most hated man in Britain have completely failed. And I was worried. I was very worried. I've been very worried about what they're going to do next. I'm very worried now about what they're going to do next, because they're in. And when I say they, I mean the government. Like, even well, I was sent to prison, and I got 13 months. And my previous prison sentences, like in 2012, I received a 10-month prison sentence, and it was for illegally entering the United States of America. Now, again, everything I've done through my activism, if it's morally right, if I believe I'm morally right, I believe boundaries need to be pushed. I believe that if the moral argument, and it's a moral cause we're fighting, I knew when I went to America, I knew what I was doing was legally wrong. But I felt that I had such an important message to give America, to give the American public, a warning to America. I wish that someone would have come to this country 30 years ago, would have told them this is what's going to happen. I'm telling you because I've lived through it. I've watched my town, I've watched the left align themselves with the Islamist groups. I've watched them join in order for the vote bank of politics. I've watched the decay of freedom. I've watched all of this growing up in Luton. So I felt when I went to America, that was an important message to give. Now, I legally entered America. I looked at previous people who had used illegal documentation. For example, Abu Qatada come into Britain on a false passport. He was not put in prison. Okay, I spent 10 months. I was put in British prison. America did not prosecute me. The British authorities prosecuted me. I had not actually broken a law in Britain because the crime I committed was in America, but they remanded me. I was remanded instantly. So I was held on remand for 3 months before I got before a judge. So, and I was put on solitary confinement. I spent, I think, 22 weeks on solitary confinement. The legalities around that, anything over 28 days is detrimental to your mental health to be isolated on your own. Now, I was moved from Wandsworth, not far from here, prison here, then to Bedford prison, then to Wood Hill prison, then back to Wandsworth prison, then to Wayland prison. And the whole entire time I saw no one at all on that entire prison sentence. I did not come out of my cell. Now, when I come out of my cell, and I've never spoke about this publicly, and the reasons for it, when I come out, I struggled big time. I come out after 5 months of sitting on solitary confinement, and I come out just straight back into society, and I struggled. I struggled to cope a lot, and I went to doctors, and I was diagnosed with having a post-traumatic stress disorder. Now, the reason why I never spoke about it publicly was because it's embarrassing. Post-traumatic stress disorder is something that men who fight wars get. I'm locked in a room. There can be no comparison in what those men are suffering for me to publicly try and talk about that.
Well, the difference is this is done to you by the British prison system on purpose. On purpose, undoubtedly, because they're not allowed to do it. They're not allowed to do. But anyway, this was for illegally entering. I spent 2 days in New York. I gave a speech where I wanted to warn America, and I spent 5 months on solitary confinement. Now, I come out of prison, and I went to prison in 2014 for a separate offence, which was for a mortgage fraud, a supposed mortgage fraud. Which again, I'll get into this in a little while. But when I went in that prison sentence, I was locked in a room and was beaten. Locked in a room with Muslim prisoners, and I was beaten. I've got all new teeth. All my teeth are new because my teeth were smashed to pieces. But I wasn't put on solitary confinement. Yeah. So I was then moved. I was put into a jihadi jail in England, where I lasted 5 minutes before I was violently attacked and battered, and then I was transported black and blue to another prison. But the next prison I was transported to has a very low Muslim demographic. I spent the 6 months of my prison sentence as a role model prisoner with Muslim prisoners, but I was no risk to them. But on my health records, which the prison system have, which the government have, they know the long-term struggles I had after solitary confinement. Now, this prison sentence, I landed in HMP Hull. Now, I was worried when I went to prison because I was in Leeds, so I thought I'd go to Bradford, is one of the biggest Muslim populations of our country. I thought I'd go to that prison. I was put to Hull because that prison was full, I believe. I was taken to Hull, and then I was put into normal location, which is what I want. What I wanted to be treated normally.
was put into a normal location where I spent 2 days. And after 2 days, I was in the prisoner guards come to get me and said, "You're being moved." Now, I believe this at the time, Lord Pearson had wrote a letter demanding my safety, which I was grateful for because I was on this induction wing. Now, so that people understand, when you get to prison, if you ask for protection, if you say, "I'm scared, I need help," yeah, then you'll be housed with the paedophiles. Yeah, I'm never going to do that, ever. It's never ever going to happen. Yeah? And they know that as well. So I would never do that. So because I've done nothing to deserve that, and I'll end up hurting one of them. So that's never going to happen. So I was put into normal location. Now, when I was on the wing, there were some Muslims there, and I did sense that possibly that it could turn violent. But there was, so people understand, out of a wing of 100 prisoners, there were 7 Muslims. Yeah? 7% of HMP Hull is Muslim. Now, the prison themselves made the decision to put me in the hospital. Every prison has a hospital. Well, this prison had a hospital. They put me in hospital where there were no Muslims, and I was separated completely from the prison population. When my family got finally in to see me after 3 weeks.
3 weeks?
Yeah, after 3 weeks was when my family got a visit booked.
Well, let me ask you about that. So all in the course of a few hours, you were arrested, tried, convicted, sentenced, and shipped off to HMP Hull. In what, 5 hours?
5 hours? Well, it's less than that, because by the time they actually, it's less than.
When was the first time you talked to your wife?
So they give you a £1 phone credit when you get to jail. So I rang my wife at that point.
So that night?
That night, yeah.
She must have been shocked.
First thing I asked her is, "Have you had enough yet?"
And it took 3 weeks for her to be able to visit you.
It took 3, and then you have a visiting hall. Now, the prison made the decision that it was not safe for me to have a visit in the visiting hall. Probably right. And so I had a private visit. And that was when I sent a letter out. And so I got my family visited me on the Sunday. On the Friday, I had my legal visit booked, where my QC and my solicitor, Carson Kay, were due to see me.
So this is still at HMP Hull?
This is HMP Hull, and this is for the appeal, because obviously, bearing in mind, I know what's gone on in court. I've explained it to my solicitors. My solicitors then contacted the court for the transcripts from the court. The court didn't give them the transcripts, they gave them half of the transcripts. So my solicitors still were in a position where I hadn't met them personally. I'd only spoke to them via the video, because in the prison you have a video link so you can talk through the camera to your solicitor. So I spoke to my solicitor. I said, I want to appeal. Obviously, I want to appeal all of this. Yeah. I can't believe what's happened. So my finally, the date set for me to sit down was I'd have been in jail a month. And the date that I'd have been able, and the reason for them not being able to sit down was because the court had not given us all the information. So then they would come in to see me on the Friday. My family visited me on the Sunday. Monday morning, and whilst I've been in 5 prisons before, in previous years, and Hull generally was a prison where the prison staff ruled the prison, not the prisoners, the prison staff, and the staff were absolutely, because I was isolated from the prison population. The prison staff would open my door for 2 hours a day, and I would spend 2 hours a day interacting with them. Now, bearing in my concern the whole time was how I spent my sentence in 2012 and the long-term effect that had on me.
You mean by being in solitary confinement?
By being in solitary confinement.
The psychological effect, is that what you mean?
Yeah, the psychological effect, which you don't realise at the time. I didn't realise at the time.
So you were in the hospital wing of HMP Hull, but you were there by yourself?
Yep. And I was because they could section off the door at the other end to the other prisoners. So I was allowed out for 2 hours a day where I interacted like we're talking now with the prison staff.
So no other prisoners but prison staff, and they were friendly enough?
Absolutely brilliant, outstanding actually. doing a difficult job.
Did you have a chance to do any exercise or
Yeah, and for 1 hour, so every single morning they'd open my door, and there'd be in the hospital there'd be a little room which would have like a little mini gym, so I'd be allowed to use that every morning. And then they'd also, for an hour and a half a day, take me outside where I'd sit in a garden where they'd sit and have their break, or I'd sit with the prison staff. Again, I'd sit and socialise and talk to the prison staff, which ideally I'd have rather just been, so that people understand as well. I had a TV this whole time, yeah? So that people understand the British prison system. When you go to prison, every prisoner is given a TV. Every prisoner, okay? You have a TV in your cell. Your cell door would open at approximately 8 o'clock in the morning. You'd get a job, you'd go to work. Your cell door would lock about 6 o'clock in the evening. So you'd be out of your cell, you'd be working, you'd be interacting. You'd have pool tables, snooker tables, football pitches, you'd play football. That's the prison system, yeah? That's
just to keep you in a routine, maybe give you some skills, earn some money.
It's a regime. Everyone has to have a prison regime. That's your general regime. My regime was very limited whilst I was in Hull, but I wasn't complaining, okay? Because I was safe. I was still interacting, so I thought I'll be all right here. Yeah.
But you were the only civil prisoner in Hull, I bet. Is that right?
I was the only civil prisoner.
I mean, the idea.
And Hull were made aware, because my solicitors made them aware, that actually you have to let me have a visit each day, and actually so you understand, £12 a week. Now, it wasn't a problem at Hull, because at Hull they'd take me out of my cell. I'd go to the canteen and I'd see the prisoners who were serving the food, and you pick your food and they give you it. So I'd visually see my food.
So it was like a cafeteria, and you take your tray, and they scoop the potatoes and they scoop things like.
And then you put into your cell. Now.
So you would eat as much as you felt like, and you would see the food right before your eyes.
Yeah, fine. Yeah, I'd see the food, so I knew nothing could be done to that food, and I didn't have that worry. And then, and out of my £12 a week, actually, whilst I was in Hull, I'd spend £12 on the phone, so I could keep in contact with my family, so I could speak to my wife, my children.
And the reason we're talking about food and interaction with other prisoners and safety and money is because HMP Hull, which you say was passable, you were suddenly and without explanation moved. Is that correct?
So, as I say, my family saw me on the Sunday.
Yeah.
They went away from the meeting happy because I told them I'm fine here.
And you saw your kids for the first time then too?
Yeah, because when I say I'm fine here, prison staff were the ones who locked me previously, in a sentence, in a room and allowed me to be violently beaten. Right. Now, in Hull, my family, my mum wrote a letter every single day to the prisons minister, every single day, detailing what she feared they were doing to me, she feared would be allowed to happen to me. Actually, she didn't whilst I was in Hull. It was when I got to Onley. But when I saw my family, I made them aware that, look, I'm fine. Yeah, I made sure the word went out that I'm okay in Hull. Yeah, I'm fine here. I've got 6 months to serve in prison.
So it was a 13-month sentence, but you thought you'd be out in 6?
I thought I'd do 6.5 months. To serve, and I relatively thought, look, I'm going to have my appeal process. I'm seeing my QC on Friday. Hull at the minute, everything. No one knew I was in Hull really. Like no one saw me. In fact, no one saw me. I was not visible. When I went and sat in the garden, no prisoners could see the garden. I didn't see other prisoners really. So it was when I had my visit. It was on the unit, the hospital unit. Now. My QC is due to see me and my solicitor on the Friday, and on the Monday, the day after my visit, they just come in at first thing in the morning and said, "Get your stuff packed, you're going."
Did they say where you're going to?
No, they wouldn't tell me. So there was a big secret where they said, "We're not allowed to say." And then all the staff who had been holding me on the unit were all as surprised as me, because they were like, they thought, to have you in this prison and to have you safe and to have it calm and to have no problems.
That's a huge success.
Massive success for the prison system.
If the goal is the rule of law,
well, the goal wasn't that.
Safety,
The goal wasn't that, which was established.
So everything was going. Obviously, no complaint. I mean, you didn't interact with anyone. You were just.
I didn't put in a prison complaint. I actually asked people publicly to stay away from the prison, to not protest the prison. That I was being held in fair conditions.
So everything was fine. I mean,
because obviously the prison I put in the position, the prison's governor is as well, which he made the decision to put me on the hospital wing. And that's because he has a duty of care for my safety.
That's probably a good decision, is what you're saying?
Yeah, I'd say, yeah. I'd say, going by my previous prison sentences, where I basically fought my way through them in different prisons.
Yeah.
Look, he done what he thought. He done what would limit violence against me.
You shouldn't have been in there in the first place since you weren't a criminal prisoner. But given that you were wrongly put in prison, that was as good as it was going to get.
So you can still be a civil prisoner held in criminal prison, held in prisons.
Okay.
But what it means is, so you can be in there, but what it means is you have more rights.
Okay, so
because you're not a criminal.
You meet your family on the Sunday. In 5 days, you're about to meet your lawyers for the first time
to go through our appeal to get me out.
But instead, the day after you meet your family, you're told you're moved.
And just so you know, so my appointment's booked. I've been given the appointment slip. So the prisoner are aware that my QC and my defence lawyer are coming to see me on the Friday. It's all booked in. I previously spoke to them 3 times via a video in the prison.
Yeah.
I'm then moved to HMP Onley.
And anyone ever explained to you why?
No. Still, in fact, when I got to Onley, we'll go through what happened. When I got to Onley, and I'm asking the head governor of the prison, why have you took me here? He said, it's above my pay grade. That's all the answers I got. It's above my pay grade.
Do you believe him?
I believe that. Yeah, I believe that.
Well, it wouldn't have been his decision.
It's not his decision. No, it's come from above them. So I've been moved to Onley, and the prison staff who dropped me there, they took me in a taxi. So the prison staff who took me in a taxi, so they put you in a taxi, handcuffed to either one, and they sit. And the prison staff that are taking me there, I'm saying, like, look, I know Onley Prison. Onley Prison is a London catchment. So everyone who goes to jail from London, we know the demographic of London. Everyone who goes to jail from London, London has the biggest Muslim population of this country. Yeah? Everyone who goes to prison from London, Onley's one of those catchment prisons. So I didn't know the demographic facts at the time, but I knew it would be heavily populated with a Muslim population. Yeah. So I kept asking again, what's been sorted? Has something been sorted? And they said, it would have had to have been. There's no way our governor could have agreed with that governor.
Yeah, that wouldn't be for them to decide.
No, they would have had to sort something out.
And this wouldn't have been for the judge back in Leeds to decide. He wouldn't.
I was out of his hands and he sent you to prison.
This would be a decision made by the prison authority.
Prison authority and the head of the prison authority, which are politicians.
Yeah.
Essentially. So basically, and bearing in mind, we all know now what fuss had gone on outside of prison in the first 3 weeks of my prison sentence.
You're talking about the Save Tommy.
Huge demonstrations, a Free Tommy campaign.
So this was punishing you, or it looks like, at least, to punish you because there was grassroots support?
Well,
That's how it looks.
Yeah, it looks like they weren't happy with the fact that I would have been able to serve a fairly normal prison sentence. So I was taken from one of the lowest Muslim population prisons in the UK, and I was put in HMP Onley. Onley has the highest Muslim population of any CCAT prison in the UK.
Okay, so you arrived by taxi. Now, you told us that at Hull, you were in the hospital wing, no one even saw you.
Yep.
Your only interactions were with the staff. Your cell door was open a few hours a day, exercise, garden, phone calls. Tell me what it was like going from Hull to Onley.
So I'm booked in, I get to reception of Onley, where you're assessed, where you have a talk. I asked them, I guess you know who I am. They said, yes, we do. I said, okay. So what's been sorted? Has anything been sorted? Where am I going in this prison? And he goes, you're going on to the induction wing. I said, okay. Like, I was surprised. I said, okay. And then they sent the governor come in. This was the #1 governor.
That's what we would call a warden in North America.
The person in charge.
Yeah.
Person in charge come in. I made them aware of my concerns at what I thought the prison system were doing.
And tell me what those concerns are.
My concerns were that I think they've intentionally taken me from a place of safety, and they're now going to have me killed.
And what did he say?
He said, you're under the name Yaxley Lennon, not Tommy Robinson, you'll be fine.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that's actually what I'm dealing with. Like no one will know who I am. And
oh my God. Now, did he say it with a straight face? Or
no,
was that...
he said it with a straight face. And so, but then it's like, then he said, obviously you're aware. And I said, I know the size of the Muslim population in this prison. And he kept saying like his robot programmed spiel of, we are a prison with a large diverse population.
Oh my God.
I said, no, you're a prison with a large Muslim population, and
it's not diverse, in fact.
You've got a large Muslim population, and the diversity of the prison is not my problem. Okay, I don't care if the prison was 100% black and you put me in there. Yeah, my problem is that you have a large Muslim population, and statistics and facts show that a certain percentage of those people outside of prison. If we look at outside of prison, 30% of British Muslims believe that violence is acceptable to someone who's insulted the Prophet Muhammad. 30%. You go in the prison system, the violent radicalised prison system with violent offenders, that's going to rise. So I'm in a. So I said. So then he said, well, what you need to do is you need to self-isolate. Yeah. So I've then said, well, I'm not going to self-isolate. Now what he wants me to do is willingly isolate myself. So when they put me on the wing, willingly keep my door locked and say that I want to self-isolate. I willingly want to be isolated. I'm not going to do that because I know what 6 months of being isolated is going to do to me. Yeah, I'd rather. And then he said his comments are, "You'll be in danger though if you go out of your cell." Because I said I'm not going to self-isolate, and he said you'll be in danger. I said I'm in danger every time I walk out my front door. I still walk out of it. Now I'm going to I'm going to walk straight out of that door. And whatever, and I'm going to defend myself in any situation. At which point he said, well, I'm going to put you down the block then. I said, can I? And I asked again, what risk assessment did you do before you brought me from the lowest Muslim population prison to the highest? Yeah. And why have you done this? Yeah. Then I'm taken straight down to the block, where again, so people are aware, I didn't ask for isolation. I've not asked to be segregated. I was happy for them to open my door, okay? Not happy in the sense that I probably would have been killed. In fact, every member of the staff at the prison told me from that point on, you'd have got murdered, man. What, like, if you'd have been out there, you'd have been killed. So all of this, because of, it's 30, so out of 100 prisoners on the wing, over 30, averaging 30, are Muslim.
Let me ask you just for a second about Muslim gangs in prison.
Yep.
Many of the people who go into prison convert to become Muslim for protection. Is that a fact?
Yes, so these 30% statistics, 30% of Onley's Muslim, that's not including anyone that's converted while they're in there. I spoke to a prisoner who was down the block who had been beaten so bad, boiling water put over him for 2 hours, beaten by Muslims in the prison because he was having bacon. Because he had bacon on his lap. So
where was the prison staff during this? Turning a blind eye?
Many prisons, as I said, Hull was a prison that was run by the staff. In fact, a government investigation into Onley. This is not me saying it. Anyone can go and read this government report. Said it's violently unsafe, it's dangerous. When we look at the radicalisation within prisons, we know that Muslim gangs have taken over prisons. Okay, this is not me saying it again. These are government reports.
It sounds like they enforce halal pretty.
Well, that's
pretty
it.
Violently.
You'll stop ordering bacon. Many prisons, to prevent this, have just took pork completely off the menus. Most prisons now, you just don't get pork. You're not allowed pork. So Onley still has pork as an option. Yeah, but obviously a lot of people, you've got to be pretty brave to order it.
Is there a rival gang to the Muslim gang?
No, because the Muslim gang is so large. Anyone who converts to Islam, that's why in the British prison system, so many sex offenders and things like this just convert because no one will give them violent attacks or hassle because they're part of the Muslim Brotherhood.
So if you're a
Muslim, you're safe. What you see, white English lads are all converting. The most weak and vulnerable people in our society who have usually been wronged their whole life. When you sit down and speak to most people in prison, if you went and stood outside a prison, get a prisoner coming out and ask them their life story, you'll see that they've been wronged. They've been wronged in growing up. They've been wronged by the system, whether they have been abused, mentally or physically, sexually. And then you have these people who have so much anger, anyway, at society, at being let down, many of them. When you actually hear, because I've done it each time I've gone to prison, I speak to people and see the opportunities they had were pretty low. And then you then have an ideology that will take that anger and direct it. And you'll become part. These people haven't had a community, haven't had a belonging, haven't had a path. Islam gives them all of that, and very dangerously. And that's why. And most of these people aren't converting. I've had these arguments with many of them within the prison system. They're converting to a gang. They're not converting to a religion.
It's amazing that the governor of that prison is such a fool to think that you wouldn't be recognized.
But basically, when I go through this, they wanted me to self-isolate.
Or they wanted you to get killed.
To get killed, yeah. What else transpired was that, which I put this complaint in to the prison, was that the imam, so basically I got taken to the block of the prison. The block is a punishment area of a prison. It's where I spent 5 months in 2012 in different prisons. Now the block is usually in the basement of a jail, usually, okay, underneath the prison.
Let me stop you there. What are the other options? You mentioned there's a hospital wing in Hull.
No, there's nothing in Only.
So
I asked that.
What is there besides a block?
Nothing, just normal wings.
Got it. So
normal prison wings where you come out of your cell at 8 in the morning again, where you have a TV.
So you were, instead of the normal prison wing, you were put in the block, which is a heavier.
I was taken straight to the block where anyone who, if you stab someone in prison or you attack someone or you rob someone or you're violent to staff, you then get taken from your normal prison location and you're put in the block.
So that's not even regular criminals. Those are criminals who then reoffend in prison.
In prison, yeah.
So you're not even supposed to be treated like a criminal prisoner in the first place, and now you're being treated as a criminal who is offended again.
Well, you'll see it this time. So bearing in mind, again, the thing that was frustrating me was I'd come from Hull where I was fine, yeah? And here I am now. And I'm taken down to the block of the prison, and as I walked into the block, the other prisoners, because nothing happens down there, you're locked up all day. As soon as the noise comes, people are looking through the gaps in their doors or the gaps in their window to see who's being brought down, what's happened, yeah? So I'm brought in, and instantly it erupts. And I made the prison were aware of this anyway. So I'm then put in my prison cell with a blue mat. And again, I say, okay, so you're making the decision, not me. You're making the decision that you're putting me down the block because you're saying I'm not safe.
Now, what's the symbolism of the blue mat? What do you mean by that?
So you don't have a bed. Is it like in prison cells? You don't have a bed anyway, a normal bed. You're in prison, yeah. You have like a prison mattress, but. And you also have a TV, and you also have a wardrobe, and you also have a table, and you also have a chair. You have all these things, yeah? Now, down the block, you have nothing. You just have a blue mat. Because the people who are down there, it's basically a smash-proof room. It doesn't have a normal toilet. It doesn't have... It has nothing that you can smash. That you can't break anything, yeah?
So
just a blue mat.
And this is right away your first night in Onley. Yep. You're being put into the block in a place where... a violent murderer who killed someone else in prison in the yard. This is the worst place.
This is the punishment. But then even the prisoners that do that, they're still only allowed to spend 14 to 28 days maximum down there.
And how long were you down there?
So in this case, a week. Yeah. So when I went in there, I went in, and then one prisoner in the cell next door to me spent the entire night smashing and booting my wall through like he was going to come into my cell. I reminded him that he's in prison and the prison wall's probably dealt to deal with that. And then, so I spent the first night down there. The threats are instant. There was a prisoner called Khan who shouted straight away, there's a price up for me to get me set. They're all shouting and arguing amongst each other. I'm then taken the next day. I get 30 minutes exercise. So that people understand, you have prison windows here, prison windows here. Here's the entrance. So I'm taken out of my cell, and for 30 minutes I'm put in this cage. I'm put in a cage for 30 minutes, where I walk around the cage on my own, with all the other prisoners who are in the block looking at the cage.
So hang on, so this is not in a gym or a yard. They've just made a little gerbil trap for you.
There's a cage there's a cage which is for where you walk around when you're down the block.
So so this is not a normal exercise facility,
No.
And you're on display for all the other prisoners. Is that right?
You're on display for the other prisoners who are down the block.
So this is inside the prison.
Yep.
It's basically ringed by.
It's ringed by a big, huge fence.
So it's like It's like the Thunderdome in Mad Max.
Yeah.
You're in the center of it.
And and bearing in mind all of the shouting, all of the abuse, all the threats, which look, I'm used to. Yeah, I'm used to this.
You surely can't be used to 100 men screaming they're going to murder you.
No.
Is that what? Well, let me not assume. What were they saying? So your half hour.
It took them a few days to get my family's names. So.
Okay, but they knew you right away.
They knew me straight away.
So this fool governor. Oh, you're Stephen Yaxley Lennon.
So the next day I sat before the governor.
Yeah.
And I said to him, "Your staff will tell you how this place erupted last night when I come in it. Your whole prison's erupted now because I'm in it, and they're all going to kill me."
You would think he would want to get you out of that prison.
He said, "I don't think," because I said, "Is your intention?" Because one point I kept making, was about TV. Now the World Cup was started, England were playing. My rights as a civil prisoner should be a lot more, visits, money, etc. Instead, I'm being held in this condition where I've got no TV, I've got nothing. For 30 minutes a day, I'm put out and paraded around all of the other Muslim prisoners that are in there.
So the 30 minutes isn't even a relief, it's 30 minutes of abuse.
Well, on that first day, which again, I've sent you this form, I reacted and I say Islam is a cancer and I got arrested for it.
Hang on a second. You got arrested for criticizing the religion of Islam.
I said Islam is a cancer. Well, I actually said Islam is a cancer and I am the cure. But I said that in... Apparently, I've waited.
Is that a crime? What were you arrested for?
No, I was arrested for religious and racial hatred.
Now, I want to ask...
again, I've got this arrest form.
But let me stop you there. You said the very first night you're in there, your neighbor's for
the whole night he's
smash
through. He's going to kill me.
A guy named Khan is saying there's a price on your head. Were they arrested?
No, no one was arrested.
When you go into the cage and for a half hour being screamed at, tell me some of the things they said to you.
Everything you can think of.
Well, I want to hear it.
Just that I'll be killed, that I'll be murdered, that my family will be murdered. Just comments about my wife, comments about my family, about my daughters.
Any arrests?
No arrests, no.
Were they locked down? Were they shut down?
No, when I got before the governor the next morning, so when I was called in to see the governor, I said, one man spent 6 hours the whole night last night. And again, my stress with it was that I was fine in whole. You've now purposely taken me to a prison where they can then use the threat against me to put me on solitary confinement and surrounded by people who want to do me harm.
So your comment about Islam being a cancer, not the most polite thing to say, but I would imagine it's a gentle reaction compared to the death threats.
Very calm reaction.
And so that's what it was? It was a reaction to them screaming at you?
It was a reaction to just...
so who called the guard on you? Was it...
A prison governor heard. So basically, I get this, which you can include this arrest form on the video. I'll give you the arrest form. It says, at this hours, and it gives the hours, I heard Yaxley Lennon shout, "Islam is a cancer and I am the cure."
So the governor himself heard that?
One of the prison staff. We call them all governor.
So the prison staff heard everything before that and was fine with that. This really is
which was the point. So I thought, okay, so now if I don't want to face further arrest, I just have to remain silent whilst all of this is going on every day.
What happened after? I mean, you're in prison already. What are they going to do? Have a?
They give you extra days and things like that. So I asked the governor. So when I went before the governor, I said I want to speak to a solicitor about this.
Yeah.
And I asked the governor, are there blasphemy laws in this prison? And what's going on with all the threats against me? How come no one? Are those people being disciplined? And I never heard another word after this.
Did he answer those questions?
No, he said, "You've asked for your solicitor. This will now be adjourned." So it's like a little mini court hearing.
Yeah.
They adjourned it. I then spent a week where, after the first day, it was a Muslim who was bringing me my food. So this is where it changes.
Yeah, you talked about in Hull, you would go cafeteria and you'd say, give me some of that and give me some of that. And you could see the food was the same all the other prisoners had. And they tell me what it was like in Onley.
Well, I'm not allowed out of my cell. So my food would be brought to me on a tray with my name on top of it. There's your food. And it would be prepared by Muslim prisoners. A prisoner from the normal location would come down to the block to do the food. It was a black lad who was a Muslim. Within a day, how's your dinner, Tommy? How was your dinner? The shouts coming from the other prisoners.
The shouts, why would they say that?
Because like, I know, especially in this prison as well, anything can get smuggled in. Most prisoners have mobile phones, yeah? Weapons. I saw through my window crack another prisoner being beaten with a bar like this big. Yeah. So
this sounds like a chaotic, wild place. It doesn't sound like it's governed at all.
It's not governed. The prisoners govern it. So
law of the jungle.
So I watched as this was. So I know that now that I'm in this prison system, now that I'm in Onley and my food's being brought to my cell.
With your name on it.
And comments are being made already, laughing about, how's your dinner, Tommy? Did you enjoy it? Laughing. So I said to say I'm not eating, yeah?
What did you think could be in it?
Well, if I was in... You can get anything smuggled into prison. Anything you want, yeah?
Poison?
Well, you can, yeah. You can get rat poison. Easily. It's only that big. Yeah. Now, I'm not going to sit and keel over in my cell and give a victory away like that to people who despise me and want to kill me. For when again... I should have £50 a week to spend, but I've only got 12.
And so, is that your own money or money?
No, your own money. Yeah, money that people send in. So
when you say you should be allowed £50 a week to spend, you're only allowed 12. That's even your own money, and that would be to buy things from the prison. Shopping list.
So I bought again. I've got the receipts of what I bought each time. I bought 5 tins of tuna, an I love you card to send to my wife. 2 packs of Space Raiders and £5 phone credit.
So how much tuna? You say 5 tins of tuna, is that per week?
Yeah, per week.
So like 1 tin a day.
1 tin a day.
Now that's not a lot of energy. That's not a lot of vitamins. Did you have anything else?
No.
Water?
Fruit. Yeah,
fruit.
Water, fruit and water. So for the first week, I didn't eat a single thing, and the prison were aware I didn't eat a single thing because I had no tuna. Because to get your forms, you have to get your forms to get your canteen. You're a week behind. So I filled out a form when I got there, and then a week later, my tins of tuna would come. So for the first week, I ate not a single thing.
Did you have water?
I'd have water. Yeah.
Did you have any fruit?
No, but because you can buy fruit on your canteen as well, and then you get fruit so you basically you fill out your week's food. And then you get it the next week. So even the meals.
Did the prison say anything? I mean, if you were on a hunger strike or if your health was in jeopardy, I mean, not eating for a day or so, but not eating for a week.
They took me after 1 week. So 1 week I haven't eaten. The reason I haven't eaten because I can't eat anyway. So they've took me to see the governor, and every day I was putting in complaints saying I believe, which people have read and they've been mocked. Yeah. I believe I'm being mentally tortured, and the reason I'm saying that is because I know I should not be behind my door 23.5 hours a day. I know I should be getting a visit every day. I know I should have £50 to spend. I know I should be able to eat. And I know I should not have been moved from a safe environment. But again, journalists should be asking the question. People should be asking, the prison system should have to answer. The government should have to answer. Why was I moved from no problems and no risk into the biggest Muslim population of the country? Why was I then put into a position where I was paraded for 30 minutes a day amongst them? Why would I spent non-stop threats. Now, after 1 week, I had no TV, so obviously I'm just sitting in a cell listening to all this. I can't comment because I've been arrested in the first week for commenting. So I put in these complaints saying that this is, and again, you have to understand that my main concern here is I know I've got 6.5 months to do, and I know what I was like last time. So I know that if they're going to hold me in this room like this for the next 6 months, I'm not going to come out in a good place. Yeah. And I was really worried about that because interacting with my kids and family and everything was affected when I spent the last solitary confinement. So all of these things were worrying to me. I also knew that my appeal date, obviously obviously they'd moved me, so I hadn't had my meeting with my lawyer.
So how long was it before you even met your lawyers?
So then it wasn't. So once they got me into H&B only, my lawyers were trying to make an appointment. It was at least another week. No, it was no. So the appointment was meant to be Friday. So it was another week before I got to see my lawyer.
That's a month.
Yeah, at least
a month.
Yeah, at least.
Now I understood because I was there at your Court of Appeal hearing. Your lawyers said that when they tried to meet you, the meetings were either cancelled or shrunk to less than an hour. Is that true?
So they struggled to get. They were trying to get the meeting, which they weren't being responded to, and then they finally got the meeting. Now, when they had the meeting, it was a 2-hour meeting to see my lawyer. This is the first chance I've got to go through now, like to go through the case. Yeah, and I'm sitting there. My meeting's meant to start at 2:00. My legal meeting. My lawyers got to the prison at 1:00, so they got there an hour early. It's meant to start at 2:00. I got brought in at 3:15. And this is like you heard my QC in court. My QC said he's never experienced this. What is going on?
So what excuse was given?
They don't have to give an excuse. The same way when when I was held for those first 7 days without a TV down the block, my lawyers put in a letter saying, just to give you prior notice, we're putting in for a judicial review. We're going to take you to court. They have 28 days to respond to any letters, so they don't have to even reply for 28 days. So.
And the TV thing, I saw the mainstream media was mocking that. It's not because you want to watch sports necessarily. It's because you're in a room with sensory deprivation. Is that the reason you need a TV? That's my guess.
My reason A was the World Cup was on.
Yeah. So you do like the sports.
I'd usually been at the World Cup. My other reason was I'd just spent. I'd had a TV for the first number of weeks in Hull. My main reason is that, look, lock yourself in a room with nothing at all, yeah? Nothing at all. Nothing, yeah? Where you only come out of that room to walk around a cage on your own for 30 minutes a day. Do that for a week, yeah? Right? A day goes like a week. You have no interaction or knowledge of what's going on really in the world. You're not speaking to anyone. You've got no one to talk to.
It would drive you mad.
So yeah, so I know that 6 months of this. So in my complaints, I'm saying, look, give me a TV. At least give me and here's the other, and 750 prisoners are in Onley prison, and every other one of them has got a TV,
including the murderers.
unless you're down the block. Yeah. When you're down the block for punishment for 14 days, you don't have TV. So what I kept saying is, you're punishing me now, which you are, because you can't keep me safe. Now, I didn't bring myself to Onley. You brought me here. You must have done a risk assessment before you brought me here. You must have.
Have you ever been given access to your prison files?
No. We're trying to get them now. We're still waiting. We're trying to get my blood samples to show how malnourished I was.
Let me ask you about that. So, you didn't need a bite for a week.
I didn't even a bite for a week, and then the prison governor, the #1 governor, asked to see me. And when I saw him, he asked, if we move you cell, yeah, so from the block to a normal cell. Now, in a normal cell, they're just better cells. They're bigger. You have a window that opens this much instead of not all. Yeah. In the block, the window doesn't open. Yeah. So you have a window that opens this much. You have a bigger cell. You have a more comfortable bed. You have a desk. Things like that. So if we move you onto the wing, the normal wing, will you eat? Yeah. And then he said, you need to sign this disclaimer. And he gave me a disclaimer which said I would be self-isolating. So I then again said...
So he's extorting you for food. You're 7 days starving. He says, I'll give you food if you sign away...
Then I said, I've told you already, I'm not self-isolating. Yeah? He then said, well, you'll stay down here. I said, well, I'll stay down here then. I'll stay down here then. But obviously you're aware, until I get my canteen, I can't eat anyway, yeah? At which point then he changed the disclaimer and he rewrote it, where it basically said, we will move you to another cell, but you will not be able to integrate with any other prisoners due to the stability of the prison. You will not be allowed to work. Now, this is where it gets quite key. Well, when we're on about £12 a week, what I can spend to have enough to eat, if you can work in prison, like everyone works, because everyone gets a job, you can spend another £12 a week, right? And then you can get enhanced, where you have good behaviour and the prisoners see you behave well, you then become enhanced, where you can spend another £12 a week. So, but bearing in mind I'm a civil prisoner, undisputable, No one can say I'm not civil because the crime is civil. I should have £50 a week. I should be able to buy food. I wasn't. I was then, once I was moved from the block, people were saying, oh, you wasn't on solitary confinement. I was then moved to another cell where I was not allowed out of that cell once. Yeah, that the condition that I had to sign if I wanted to be moved was that they were forcefully isolating me, which I wanted it to say, because I wanted it to. I'm not isolating myself, and that was a key point for me. Yeah. I'm not isolating myself. You put me on that wing, I'm coming out. Yeah. And whatever happens, happens. And if I get killed, I get killed because you're doing that. And I'm not gonna. And I don't know if it's my own, like part of my own. I'd see anything else as being a coward. Yeah. But I know I'm going to get killed at the same time. So I'm not going to ask for separation. And they've then put me there. They've then isolated. And in the form that I had to sign to get moved from the block, it said, which again, this is public. It said that the only time I'll be allowed out of my cell is when the rest of the prison is locked for lunch. So between 1:30 and 2:30, I'll be taken from my cell, escorted down to the block, back to the block, where I have a shower and I walk around the cage again. Now, these are only little things, yeah, but not little things. My wife's at work and my children are at school between 1:30 and 2:30. So essentially, I can't speak to my kids now. Now, what's frustrating is all around the prison, all you ever see and read about is mental health, and keeping prisoners in contact with their family, which is super important if you don't want them to reoffend. All of these guidelines and things they try to do.
So there's like posters
and whole massive
like brochures,
whole massive campaigns. Yeah,
psychologists.
Yeah, whole campaigns.
Did you see any psychologists?
The first day I got in there was the mental health were there with the governor, where I expressed to them.
Did they say a word?
No, I said to them everything I think you're doing and the reason I think you're doing it. What I kept asking, why have you taken me here? Yeah. You're going to now hold me on solitary for 6 months. I know what you're doing. Yeah. They then told me you won't be here in a week. Specifically said you will not be here in a week.
Who said that?
The governor.
He said you will not be in on leave for a week?
You won't be in on leave in a week's time. So then I think, okay, I'm getting moved. I never got moved.
Did these so-called mental health advisors...
They come and saw me the day before I went home.
Ha! And what did they say there?
I told them again, I need to be out of my cell. Yeah. And then, so I wrote complaints after complaints after complaints. One of the complaints I said is that for an hour a day, just let me on the field. Yeah? Let me run around the field. And again, I felt like everything was dangling a carrot, because then they replied to the complaint, which I've got, saying we are going to do that, basically, yeah? They didn't do it. Yeah, they never done. Now, so not once did I come out myself. Now, once I got put onto the wing, into the wing location, this was obviously, again, my cell location, which I think is quite important. Anyone can check this. I was in cell H wing, which is induction wing, cell 9. I can show you an overhead view of the prison because I've done it on Google Maps to show. And then directly opposite my window was the industrial unit, which I've said was a mosque, used as a mosque. It is used as a mosque. On a Friday it's a mosque, on a Sunday it's a church. Now, every prisoner in that prison who's Muslim will walk past my window to go in there to pray. Yeah? Now,
this is when you're in the block or when you're in the wing?
When I got moved onto the wing. Okay. Now, the thing that they made me sign clearly stated that if there were problems when I'm on the wing, they would reassess my security situation and basically put me back down the block. Yeah, where in the block there's no electricity. So the reason they're saying we're not giving you a TV, even though there is electricity, there is a TV point, they're saying the electricity is not working down there. Yeah, for TVs. That's what they told me. So, yeah. So in my mind, I'm going to be put back down the block. So when I got put on the wing, I had Muslims at my cell door constantly. Some of them, there was a lad from Brixton, lovely lad, who wasn't, in fact, was saying to the others, just leave him alone. Yeah. But the majority of the time, it was just threats after threats after threats. At my window...
Did anyone stop them, ever, from coming to your door to issue threats? No. Never?
No, one of them was moved. So one of them in the cell opposite me was moved. Now, this was a prisoner who came to my cell and told me that he had a message for me from Saiful Islam.
And who's Saiful Islam?
Saiful Islam means Sword of Islam. That's his name. He's in jail for ISIS terrorism. He's the leader of a terrorist group in Britain called Al-Mujahideen. He was the second in command of that group. He's from my hometown of Luton. He's physically had run-ins with me in my hometown of Luton. He's like the leader of the radical Muslims in Britain. and he was passing a message on to me of things that were going to happen to my family. Yeah. Now,
can you say any of them here, or would it put your family at risk to say it?
he knew things. He knew things about my family,
like location or names or ages.
He knew names. He knew all the names of my children, of my family. And I then, so the prison, and he told me he come from speaking from Saif al-Islam. Now, when I saw the female member of staff, there was a female member of staff. I said to her, "Look, I'm a bit concerned now. You know, this isn't normal. This isn't," because I was getting spat through my window, shit come through my window. In the end, what I did on my window was I just shut my windows. Yeah, after the first couple of days.
Okay, so when you say spat and human excrement,
yep.
That's because you were on the outside.
My bed's here, and the window's here. The bed isn't. You can't move your bed. That's where it is, and the window's here. Now both the windows they only open this much.
Yeah.
But you know the boiling summer we had in Britain, I had my windows open, and within a few days it was clear that I couldn't have my windows open because of the shit and spit and just people at my window.
Now, did you have to be on the ground floor across from the mosque?
There's 3 floors. I could have been on any floor.
Did you bring this to the attention of staff?
No, I didn't. No, I did. The staff were very aware of the threats and the things coming out the window, but I didn't ask for a move because I didn't want to be put down the block.
Ah, I see.
It said clearly at the bottom of my thing, if there's issues with you on the wing, you'll be put. It said it clearly, which again people can read. Now,
was anyone ever charged for throwing things through your window? No, of course not.
But then this prisoner who gave me the warning, the prison officer went and checked, and he had just come from a maximum security prison where Saif al-Islam was being held.
So it was a credible message.
It was legitimate, yeah.
And what happened to him?
They moved him.
They moved him, eh? So did they move him down the block?
No.
No, so you can be a messenger with a death threat to someone's family from a terrorist, and your punishment is you move to another cell with a TV in it.
And then...
And also, if you complain about it, you're down in the block.
Yeah, I'm on complete isolation anyway. Yeah, so I'm taken out for 30 minutes a day where I'm walked down. I wrote my wife a letter in this in the first week I was in HMP only, and it wasn't a letter to go public. It was a letter for me to detail a lot of things I needed to say to her because to be honest, in that first week I didn't think I'd make it out of there. And in fact, I thought, I know what their intentions are now. I know what's gone on in my previous sentences. So I wrote her a letter basically apologising to my wife. And it was me apologising, not for anything I've done, but for the situation that she finds herself in, that we find ourselves in. And I also, and the reason it was, to explain it, it was important for me, say if I got killed in that prison sentence, there was a lot of things that I hadn't said that I needed to say, especially with regards to, just with regards to my wife and then to my children. So I wrote 3 individual letters to my children where I wanted to say to them, Joe, the thing that was killing me most was that if, say I got killed and they grow up without a dad, then they'd be angry at me for thinking that I didn't care about them. I've done this last time, man. I didn't care about them as to why I do what I do, and so I individually and I broke my heart to write it, and then they didn't send it. They held back the letter.
Why did they do that? How do you know that?
Because they give me a form and they give me a form saying the letter's not being sent because they think it's going to end up online.
What difference does that make? It's your letter.
They think it's going to end up online, and it is and I know that may seem like a little thing, but it knocks you because
it's like a last will and testament. Can you tell me what you said to your wife? Is it too personal?
No, to my wife it was apologies. Look, there's been times over the last years where I haven't been living with my wife, where I've been living at my mum's and things like that, where I've made mistakes even across my marriage, and it was just, and then it was apologies about because everything that goes on with me, I may be serving a prison sentence, she's serving a sentence on the out, and then also the letter I wrote was prior to the police going to see my wife, but it was then just things to tell my children about their characters. And
Did you tell these things to your wife after you got out? Did you say them to her?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's not, and even with my kids, it would be that. It would be trying to tell your wife, or you're trying to tell your wife, which I've tried to tell her many times, that this isn't about my kids, yeah? This isn't about our kids. This battle is about every single child and the next generation of children across this country, even the people who hate me, even the people who despise me, even the politicians. It's about their kids and their kids, and it's about everyone's kids. So this goes beyond the need of my children. The need of my children, yeah, I should shut my mouth and just be a dad. But it's far bigger than that. And what is it essentially it's like, if we remain silent, if we ignore and we don't stand up to the blatant wrongs that we can see, to the blatant dangers we see our country in and our families in and our communities in, if we don't, then essentially if there's going to be a battle and someone's going to have to put themselves up, then let it be me, not my son. So I could, and trying to explain that to your wife, who's not politically minded or doesn't really, all she cares about is being a mother to the kids and our kids. She doesn't think deeply about, she doesn't view the country, she doesn't, or do you know what I mean? It's like, so it was to put, it was a 10-page of me not just breaking my heart. And I actually said in the letter, this isn't a suicide note, I know it reads like it, because I generally at that time, I'm thinking, why have they moved me to this prison? They're going to let them have a shot. Yeah, I found out that the imam, the prisoner who works down the block, when I spoke to him, he said, when I was going out in the exercise yard, he said, I knew 3 days before you got here you was coming here. I said, how do you know that? He said, the imam was telling everyone. So then I'm thinking, so the Muslims in the prison have had an opportunity to prepare themselves. When I previously got violently beaten in prison, I was locked in a room. I knew that those Muslim lads didn't know I was going to be locked in that room, yeah, because I could tell by their faces. Now, if you give someone an opportunity, then they're getting knives, then they're getting blades. They're going to be ready for me when they get that one opportunity to have a swipe at me. They're going to get it. So I'm weighing all that up, and I'm thinking of why I've been moved from one prison to another. So I'm generally, I don't think I'm coming out of there. And there's a lot that I wanted to say, or I want to say, not just to my wife but to my children. And then when they stopped the letter,
what was the reason?
It would end up online.
What's that? What law does that break?
Because my previous, and then my lawyers have contacted the prison then, saying give us a copy of the letter, which they didn't again, and then yeah. So
when you were in HMP Hull, when you were in the hospital wing in the safer prison, you did write a letter.
I did, yeah.
And I know it got through because I saw it posted online.
I wrote So I wrote a letter. So I wrote letters to my wife from HMP Hull as well. I wrote her a brief letter, but it wasn't a letter because I looked around and thought, I'm all right here, yeah? So when I was in Onley, in that first week, I thought, I'm not all right here.
So they didn't stop your letter at Hull?
No.
The one that was online and was incredibly touching, I want to remind you of something you said. I mean, you had a lot of sense of humor in that letter. You talked about how Donald Trump Jr. mentioned your case, and you joked that was worth the whole thing. But he also wrote about your son, and I've had the pleasure of meeting him. He's just like you, Tommy.
Yeah.
And how he couldn't understand what was going on, and how he wanted to go to do something bad so he could be put in prison to be with his dad. And I heard from your wife that he slept with an old shirt of yours that hadn't been laundered just so he could smell his dad until the scent was gone after weeks. What did you say to your kids in the letters?
So the letters were just to talk about them, just to talk about, to also, I wouldn't want them to try as children, so they I can't. Just for them to understand that everything I do it because, yeah.
Do they understand what you're doing? Do they know about these subjects? Have you kept them shielded from these politics?
I've kept them shielded from knowing the severity of the risks, of the threats. For example, when I was in Onley, my door opens, and again, my door opens at about 9 o'clock at night. Where's your wife? How am I meant to know where my wife? The only time
who asked you that?
3 members of prison staff. Now, bearing in mind, the only time I'm allowed out of my cell, they've specifically made it so it's not when I can ring my wife and children. So where's my wife? And I said, I don't know. They said, the police are trying to find your wife. I said, okay. And I said, why? And they said, there's intel that she's going to be attacked with acid. Now, and then they shut my door, basically. That's basically it. And then they said, do you know where she is? And then they shut my door. So then to say I didn't sleep a wink, man. And I'm waiting and waiting. And then, but then
that's not a genuine question. That's a taunt.
Yeah, the sickening thing is like, so basically my wife, the police knock on my wife's door and they give her a little leaflet of what to do when you're attacked with acid.
Oh my God.
You've got to see the leaflet. It's so pathetic.
Which police force was that?
Bedfordshire Police. And then 3 days later, they go to my mum's and they do exactly the same.
What to do when you're attacked with acid?
Is
call the police on the list at all?
Oh, no, one of the things is that you cannot get weapons, you cannot have a weapon to defend yourself. So basically you cannot break the law. One of the guidelines is do not break the law. So then basically I'm sat in prison thinking my wife's going to get attacked, all right, or my mum's going to get attacked, because they went to my mum's 2 days later. And then I have the mental pull of, is this even real? Or is this to mess with me? Is this to psychologically destroy me whilst holding me on solitary confinement, whilst putting me in these positions? And then the opportunity I then get to use the phone when I do get hold of my family, you can imagine my wife's situation of how she's feeling. You can imagine the stress and worry about all of that. And it's just like, and then the whole time I'm reminding myself that I'm in here for standing outside a courtroom and telling people the names of men who, again, I can't comment yet legally on what happened at that trial, but of men who are alleged to have raped up to 100 young children. And I'm a civil prisoner and I shouldn't be in it. I shouldn't be held in these conditions. I'm not eat. I can't eat. I then put in forms. I put in a complaint saying, look, if you make me enhanced, yeah, I get an extra £12 a week. Then I can buy more food. Yeah. Do you know what they replied? I've got the copy of their response. They replied saying, we have to see your good behaviour.
Oh my God.
Right? To make you enhanced. But because you're not out of your cell, we can't see you behaving well. And it's like, are you for real?
You know, I know there's a phenomenon here in the UK called cage prisoners. It's all these former Al-Qaeda prisoners from Guantanamo Bay.
They have people queuing up to defend them. This is the other thing that was so disheartening for me. I know what's gone on. I know it's a kangaroo court. I know I've been illegally imprisoned. I know everything that has gone wrong. I now know that my rights are being trampled over. My human rights. We talk about contempt of court. I'm in court. I'm supposedly in prison for contempt of court. We're sitting outside Westminster. It's them who are guilty of contempt. They're guilty of contempt for civil rights, guilty of contempt for justice, guilty of contempt for free speech, guilty of contempt for democracy and the most recent things. And I'm sitting in prison knowing all of this is happening, knowing all of that every single day, the threats, the constant, which isn't a situation that it had to be. All they had to do, which my solicitors wrote to them, as soon as they moved me to Onley, my solicitors wrote and said, move him back to Hull, he was fine. Do you know what they said? Which I've got again in writing, is that for them to move me to a prison that matches my racial prejudice, would be immoral and illegal. Right? So to put me in a prison which has the most, and bearing in mind that when I put my complaint in, one of my complaints said that 7% of the whole was Muslim, 30% of Onley is. I feel like you've purposely endangered me. Their response was, if you speak negatively about our Muslim population again, you'll be on the IEP system, which is again arrest. Now, they're the ones, HMP Onley and their staff and their governor are the ones that said I wasn't safe, not me. They're the ones that put me down the block and held me on solitary confinement because they said that I'd be violently attacked, not me. I didn't. It's not what I've done. I didn't isolate myself. They then held me for months. Probation come to see me. So a week before my appeal, a week before I had my appeal, I had a probation officer who had been to see my wife and assess my home for my release from prison. And then they come to see me, where they informed me that one of my conditions, because my HDC, which is where you're released on tag, My tag date was coming up in September.
Tag is what you call bail here in
Tag is where you have an
probation.
electronic tag around your ankle and you go home. And so basically, if you get a 13-month prison sentence, after 3.5 months, I'd be let home. Where for another 3 months, I'd spend where I have to be in my house between 7 and 7.
Right.
So 7 o'clock at night and 7 o'clock in the morning, you have to be at home. So probation, this is them, the probation service. So they come to see me because they were assessing my property.
Right.
They went to meet with my wife and my family and about me being released on tag. They then told me that my condition, this is where it becomes very apparent what all of this is about. My condition, upon release, will be I will be banned from the internet. Banned from using the internet till June 2019.
What does that have to do with...
Now you tell me, Ezra. You know my previous prison sentence when I was leading the English Defence League, my condition, which was for legally entering America, my condition then was not to contact the EDL. So anyone who wants to sit and say that this current case, is not politically motivated, that means that they'd have to accept for it not to be politically motivated. They'd have to accept that the judge, by accident, incorrectly, a judge of 30 years or whatever, a top judge, would not realise that he has to ask me if I'm guilty or not guilty, would not have to tell me what I've done wrong, would not have to let me speak to my solicitor, so then they'd have to buy into that. They then have to buy into the fact that the prison accidentally hold me as a criminal prisoner, not a civil prisoner. They'd then have to buy into the fact that just by accident I was moved from the safety of Hull into HMP Onley and put under all of these conditions. They then have to see that it's normal for someone to be banned from the internet. Yeah?
That would put you out of business, and it would shut you up on 100 other matters, unrelated to this court case.
Which is what all of this is about.
Who would have drafted that tag condition? Who would have?
Well, who's the probation service?
I don't know.
Run by the government.
I don't know when it's going to hit landfall, but I know that Phoebe has $50 on it being Thursday.
So
just the internet completely.
Yeah, I've been banned from the internet till June 2009.
That's what this is about. This isn't about you standing outside of a court case. This is about you having any opinions on any matter whatsoever.
It's about them silencing and stopping, which is something they've had a tactic to do and tried to do for multiple years now. If I sit here now, and to be honest, Ezra, I come out of jail, clearly I'd lost a lot of weight. I've put nearly a stone back on.
Well, I asked you. You told me when you went in, you weighed, I'm going to just say it in pounds, 190 pounds, and you came out just over 150 pounds. What's that in stone? How do you say it here in the UK?
3 stone.
That's not healthy to lose that much weight through starvation.
Of course not. And it's not healthy. And I also know the worry in my head the whole time while I'm in there is I know what I went through 2012 when I come out of prison, which I never spoke publicly about because, again, it's quite embarrassing. Even now, I'll never compare it to anything anyone's been through at war. It's nothing like it, yeah? It's nothing like it, but it is purposely done. Everything that's happened with this sentence, the isolation, the purposely putting me in a position where they can say, because of his safety, we need to put him in solitary. Because of that, the threats to my wife, the police visits, all of these things that I'll say are purposely done. I knew, like, I'm a lot better now, even now. When I come out of prison, I went straight on holiday for 2 weeks, yeah? I went straight which meant I didn't have to communicate, really talk. I just lay by the pool. And I spoke to a couple of people that were other families on the holiday. When I come back from holiday, I took my kids out, and this is the most thing that angers me, frustrates me, is that if you put something in front of me, I'll fight it. Yeah? Put something there and I'll fight it. And that's what I've done for 10 years. Whenever they've knocked me down, I've got back up and carried on fighting. And then what they've managed to do, I come out of jail, I've gone away with my family, I know I'm not right. I know at the time I'm not right. Yeah.
When I saw you the night you got out of prison, you looked shaken.
I was shaken. My speech.
You weren't yourself. You weren't yourself.
No, and even now I know I'm not myself. Yeah, I went to come out of, and I tried to go to watch. I went to watch Luton play football, and I took my kids, and because I knew even when I was in prison, I know I have to get out myself. When my family come to visit me by the end in HMP Only, I didn't want to see them.
Huh?
Now that's messed up, yeah.
Yeah.
And I would have butterflies for 5 hours before going to see my own family, yeah. And in the end, you don't want to come out of your cell. So whereas at first I'm complaining and arguing, get me in the gym, get me this. By the end of it,
yeah,
you're just laying on a bed.
Vegetable.
Yeah. And so I know all these things every single day, every opportunity. I've done my 30-minute. There was 4 times in 1 week where they didn't even get me out for the 30 minutes. Every Tuesday I wasn't allowed out at all for 24 hours. Yeah.
Why?
Because there was a judge doing the adjudications and they were too busy down the block. So every Tuesday, So I know I need to get out. So when I come home from holiday, I thought I need to get back into the system. I want to get back out there. I went to a Luton Town football match. I left at half time. It weren't just because we were losing. It's because, and I was supposed to have my friends come around to watch the boxing, which I cancelled. And it's because I weren't right. I know I'm not right. And do you know how upsetting it can be when I think that they've got away with doing it?
Losing that kind of weight, not on purpose, but because you're being starved. That's a medical extreme condition. Did any doctors prescribe you supplements, vitamins? Did they take tests?
No.
Were you examined?
I had a blood test. I told every member of that staff how concerned I was about my weight loss.
And they must have seen. I was shocked when I saw you when you got out. I couldn't believe it.
All they had to do was make me enhanced. So I'd had another £10. Another £10 would have been another 6 or 7 tins of tuna a week.
And what do they care? It's your own money. But did a doctor ever see you?
So a doctor took my blood tests. So what I sense is that when I went to court, so basically, bearing in mind it took them a couple of hours to send me to prison. I've then gone before. It took me 2 months before I can get back into a court to see a judge. Now, when I went before the court, the High Court, the judge heard everything, yeah? So he knew how wrong it all was. They still kept me in prison for another 2 weeks in solitary confinement. He could have released me. He should have released me on bail there and then.
So when did the doctor take your blood?
So when I come back after that court case,
So
because I think in court it had been made public about my health, about my worry, about my concerns, about my solicitor's concerns. So a day before my verdict, the mental health team come to see me and they took me for a meeting where I sat before the mental health team, where I said to them, like, I can't do another 4 months this, yeah? Like,
so it was only when your story was told in public court did a doctor, they would have seen you wasting away, but it was only when the public court...
He come and took blood samples.
Did he ask you any questions or did he just take blood? Did he ask you...
No, they asked me questions. Every time I spoke to him, I told them, you need to get me out of this cell.
Did he give you any diagnosis? Did he give you any prescriptions? No. Did he say, give this man more food?
No.
Did you ever see that doctor again?
No.
Are you sure it was a real doctor?
No, so... I don't know. I don't even know if it's
a nurse or...
A nurse or someone on their rounds, or someone who works in the prison in the healthcare.
Have you ever got the results of that blood test?
No, my solicitor's been trying to get it now.
Did you go to a doctor once you got out of prison?
Yeah, I did.
It'll be interesting to see. But you put £10 back on?
I put £10 back on. I've been to see a doctor, a Muslim doctor, lovely fella. So I've been to see him. He's diagnosed me. Again, it's an embarrassing thing because I'm not going to sit here and say, Joe, it's embarrassing. It's humiliating.
It was done to you.
Yeah, it's me.
Because they've been allowed to do it, and it didn't have to be this way. No one can justify it. No one can answer the question. Joe
and Tommy.
Media, all of this can happen. All of this can happen with the full support of every single politician in that building, and every single media outlet. Not one media.
Yeah, dude, I've just been testing out this new liquor bottle bong, man. It's kicking my ass.
When those letters were obtained by the Daily Mail,
Tommy left prison with a nasty cough, man.
They mocked your handwriting style.
They said that it was a handwriting of someone who's insecure.
Well, you were insecure.
Wouldn't you be?
You were.
I was surrounded by people who were threatening me every minute of every day. My wife was under threat. My mother was under threat. I'm held. I knew in conditions that look. It's 2018. You would not hold. You would not be allowed to put a dog in the position they put me, treat it the way they treated me, without the RSPCA coming and doing something back.
You shout at a dog. You starve a dog. You give a dog no exercise. You put a dog in a box.